Hi, guys. Welcome to a Student of the Game podcast. We're super excited to have you guys out. Thank you so much for following along as we continue our journey. On today's episode, we've got our newest teacher, Marco Manrique. How you doing today?
All good, man. Appreciate you for having me.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you for being on. You know, I want to announce this episode's relatively special, as this is one of my business partners. I have 4 of these guys across 2 businesses, but this is one of them. We're going to get a little bit into that discussion and how that came to be and how it's going now. But I know this is going to be an awesome episode because of that. With that being said, Marco, tell us a little bit about your current endeavor, your current role and place in the marketplace.
So currently I'm employed at Lennar Homes. I'm a new home consultant. I'm in charge of a certain community, and I have to sell the homes, manage the construction, make sure people get closed, and make sure they get their keys.
Okay, nice. Well, I'm glad, you got the opportunity to be on. Again, I talked about it, how excited I was for this particular episode. And I know a lot of people are going to be learning from you as we've been waiting to talk to someone in the real estate game. And we'll obviously dive into the different avenues and areas in the sport of real estate. But I know there's a lot of questions that have come up. With that being said, I do want to take one quick moment before we pour our drink of the night and talk about today's sponsor. AG1 is an awesome product by Athletic Greens. Athletic Greens is a company that I talked about in the recent episode, who has made an awesome greens powder, and most importantly, one that does not taste like a lawnmower. It's an awesome substance. It's got a hint of pineapple as its taste. It's something I take every morning. I even put them in my smoothies, before I go to bed. Check it out, guys. It's going to help you stay more, healthy, get all your different vitamins and nutrients in your body without having to go and lick a lawnmower. So with that being said, guys, check it out, athleticgreens.com. Super excited about that. So, Marco, tell us a little bit about the beginning. Tell us about your journey, where it all started. Were you always, in something where you wanted to be in real estate? Was that new? Were you always in entrepreneurship? How did this kind of come?
Well, actually, I never, ever in my life thought that I'd be selling homes. I was in the sales business prior to this, and before that, I was in just, labor work. Most of my grind came from, just my childhood, as far as, the way things happen in my life. I was born in Guatemala, came to Houston when I was 4 years old. So my mom, with my sister, she raised both of us. And, it was a little hard because we didn't have the background that a lot of people may have, with the family. Mm-hmm. We did go through some hardships, with the whole fatherhood and, domestic violence, stuff like that, a lot of kids don't go through, but I'm glad.
Yeah, but the thing is, what I want you to also remember is a lot of people who may be watching may be battling these things.
Yeah.
And most importantly, they may be in a place where they feel succumbed to their circumstance is going to prohibit them for where they want to go. So, again, we don't want to ever force anyone to tell too much of their story that they're not comfortable with, but some of those things that you're talking about could be relatable, and you could help someone really overcome those different difficulties if you talk about one, what you endured, even in a quick notes version, and how you overcame it to be able to, be where you are in your place on the mountaintop. Absolutely.
So this all began when we were about 7 years old. My dad had a drug addiction. He was an alcoholic, and, there was a lot of domestic violence towards my mom. Mm-hmm. So, she had to make the decision. She had a 7-year-old daughter and a younger boy. And she was like, I can't have a life like this with my kids. And so she was like, hey, you know what? We're here on our own. We didn't have any family here in Houston. And so it was more of a, hey, I can either stay here with this guy and, just live, take the punches, whatever. But she was like, no, I need a future for my kids. And she decided, hey, you know what? We need to get out of here. Mm-hmm. And so, they called the cops, and they took us to a shelter. And so for about 8 months, we lived in a shelter, over in off of Washington. And
what age is this, or are we at this point?
I was about 6 years old.
Okay.
So
and it's just you and your sister, right?
Absolutely.
And
yeah.
how much older is your sister than you?
A year and a half.
Okay, so relatively close.
Mm-hmm. She was about to be 8.
Okay.
So the shelter was called Casa Juan Diego, just off of the Heights area. And it's hard because you don't understand these things as a kid. So you're like, why is this happening? I want my dad in my life. And it's kind of hard because, you go into school, you see all these parents, these award ceremonies, and you just don't see your parents there,
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard because my mom had to work 2 to 3 jobs a day just to, give us a good life. And there was a nice lady named Ms. Ann, and she was actually in real estate. She was for Remax. She worked for Remax.
Can we get him a towel?
And this is pretty cool because, this is all new to me, and I'm a big sweater, so I get pretty nervous in situations like this.
We all noticed.
And in 2022, actually, I was telling one of my friends, I want to be uncomfortable. I want to set myself up to where I can grow. Because stuff like this, where you're recording, it's like, this is all new to me.
It's a different ball game, man. It is. And, we're going to continue your story, but I do want to acknowledge to everyone watching, it's one of those things that, unfortunately, you see people very good at it. By the time you get the opportunity to witness people on podiums or on podcasts, they've created a level of success for themselves and an ability to speak and conversate that makes it look easy. But what I want to articulate very clearly is it's not. It looks easy because you're seeing people who are seasoned in something. But they put in a lot of work to make it look that easy. And I appreciate this particular opportunity because, again, we're going to dive into your story, but you're a very successful person who's found an awesome slice of the pie in the real estate game, and you're doing well. And the things that you've done in the last 12 months, from buying a nice house and, the nice toys you've been able to get, shows your level of success while you're still, sweating on the podcast. So, we're gonna get one of the guys who's gonna get you a towel just to kind of get caught up. I think there's some paper towels above the sink, but we'll continue on your story. So again, you guys are relatively younger, under 10, and we're kind of in the shelter. Where does that go from there?
So Miss Ann, this lady that I was speaking of, she actually worked for Remax. She was in real estate. Mm-hmm. And when my mom was working, she would actually take care of us. And she would take us to her office from time to time. And it's crazy because, I'm a strong believer in God, and I believe that everything in life has a purpose and there's a time for everything. And at the time, when you're a little kid, you see these offices, she would introduce us to people like, hey, yeah, these are OT's kids, and people would be so nice to us, We didn't come from a lot. We have very low income in the family. And people they were just drawn to, want to help us and take care of us. And they were like, man, you guys are one of the most behaved kids ever, Like, we see all these kids that come in here and they're running around. Me and my sister would come in. We had I remember we had a little plastic desks that my mom had bought us at Dollar Tree. And she would just give us, like, little paperwork to do whenever we would go with Miss Ann. Like, hey, stay busy, read a book, stuff like that. And so she would take us to these offices at Remax, and I was just like, hey, this is pretty cool. And she was very wealthy, like, very wealthy woman. She wasn't married. She didn't have any kids, but she was like, and she would always tell us, like, we need to go to the library. You need to be educated. She would just be like, hey, you need to read books. And then she would get mad at us because, as kids, we want to go and grab the books that have pictures and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And she was like, no, if it doesn't have this certain emblem on it, I don't want you reading that book. She's like, you guys are old enough to be able to read chapters.
You guys are still sub 10 at this time?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
He's going to hand you that.
Actually. Appreciate it.
Sweet. Thank you, guys. We have an awesome team here at the podcast, man. These guys are behind the scenes, so they don't get the opportunity, man, but an awesome team. They get paper towels when guys are sweating.
And I appreciate it. Like I said, man, it's all about getting uncomfortable. It's the only way you can grow, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Just, the growth does not happen inside of the comfort zone. You've got to leave that area. You've got to get outside of that circle, and you've got to get in places that challenge you and, quite frankly, terrify you. I'm a firm believer of that. If you're not doing things that make you extremely uncomfortable and make you want to go back to what you want to do, then you're not maximizing or growing your potential. So I appreciate you being honest and open about that.
I appreciate that.
So she's kind of putting an impact in you guys. The question I have is this something that is really leaving an impression on you as sub-10 children or on your mother?
So a little bit of both, because she did put my mom around people that kind of were able to elevate her. Mm-hmm. So at the time that we were in the shelter, my mom was focused on cleaning. So and that gained a lot of respect on my part and my sisters, that we see our mom, we're at school. She goes from one place, and then immediately after, she had to actually hire somebody to go pick us up from school because she couldn't, because she had to go to her next job. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? So it was, I mean, we adapted to it, but it was hard as kids. You see these parents, they're picking up their kids from school, and we got this random person to pick it up. Of course, we got cool with her. She was our lady that would take care of us after school, but it was just something that we had to get used to. And then as time grew by, I mean, my mom she got very involved in the church that we went to. Mm-hmm. And that's another thing that I felt like helped me in my sales process, because and I grew up in church. So you know, we would go, our pastor was huge on, you know, spreading the gospel, go and talk to strangers, just approaching random people, you know. There are and a lot of times that's very nerve-wracking for a lot of people, you know. I'm not going to go talk to this person. I don't know him.
Well, well, quite frankly, that's probably the hardest hurdle to get over in sales is the ability to have conversations with people you don't know.
Absolutely.
You know, I was talking to one of my mentors when I was a little bit younger, and he was giving me some insight towards a gentleman. I wish I could reference the book, but I don't know it. But, you know, and I've talked about it about a lot of the guys who I mentor, and it was a story of an older Asian gentleman who wanted to get into the business world and wanted to learn that, but was able to identify a weak point being his ability to open and start communication with people he didn't know. The thing you're talking about, walking up to a random person and speaking to them. So this book goes into detail on how he spent, I think it was 6 months of his life, going into bars around, you know, 1:30, 1:45 a.m. And, you know, it talks about how he's not a super attractive man, but he would go up to the prettiest or most attractive woman that he would see in the bar, and he would go and ask her, hey, did you want to get out of here? You know, knowing that his chances were relatively slim. And he talked about it. He talked about the fact that he got a no pretty much every night for the first 3 months. And then through getting those no's, he got more and more comfortable hearing the word no. He got more and more comfortable with the rejection, that the fear of rejection actually subsided entirely. And it got to a point where he was so comfortable to walk up to these people that he had a different swagger, a different element of confidence that actually turned the results. And from going to them with such confidence, you know, it went from, hey, you know, how you doing? Would you like to get out of here too? Hey, how's it going? I'm John. I would love to take you home. And that changed the dynamic to the point where he started getting yeses. And to the end of, you know, this journey, he had found himself so comfortable in speaking to random people that, you know, he opened his business and did absolutely well. So that thing that you're referring to is a universal problem in the business of sales. And unfortunately, the business of entrepreneurship is completely centered around sales. You know, you could have an awesome product. There's a lot of, you know, women I talk to all the time that have lash companies and lash studios, but unfortunately, you know, they've got to sell that. They've got to go out and they've got to make that sale. They've got to sell that their product is worth something and that people should be paying money for them. So sales is an absolute, you know, 100% needed component to what is going down. Absolutely. So you're talking about, you know, being around the church gave you the opportunity to kind of learn that, huh?
Yeah, so we got very involved in the church. You know, we spent a lot of time at church. We were almost there every day of the week. And we did a lot of, you know, prospecting and stuff like that. So it was good. The church helped us out a lot. And that's actually where my mom met her now husband, which is my stepdad. And great man of God. He has very good, you know, statutes. And, he took his own as his own. Mm-hmm. And so
what age are we at this point?
At this time, I was 10 years old when they got married. My sister, I believe, was close to turning 12. So we were still young, you know. I mean, he had one daughter in Mexico, but here in the United States, it was just us for a while. Eventually, he brought her over, but for that time being, it was just us two. And so, you know, him and my mom, and they were great. They were great parents, hard workers. He did a lot of work. So did she. She was just trying to make sure that we had a good lifestyle, you know. Mm-hmm. And as time went by, you know, middle school, high school, you know, I got more involved in the church. And that's when I started, I was like, man, I need to do something in school. And in school, a lot of people knew me as the church boy. Everybody, man, I remember my yearbook, a lot of people wrote, man, you're going to be a pastor someday. You're going to be a pastor. Because I carry around my Bible and stuff. It was pretty cool, you know, being able to, I got a group of people that, you know, group of students there that were like, hey, we should open an after-school program and, you know, do something with it. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we started recruiting people like, hey, you know, we would get people excited about it. I remember this one time we did a huge event in the cafeteria and man, it was a lot, more than 100 people, man. And at that time, you know, we had the event, we had music going on, you know, games and stuff like that, just to get people attracted to it. Mm-hmm. And so stuff like that helped me, you know, a little bit with, you know, trying to do the outreach, just walking up to random people and stuff.
Yeah.
And so, you know, as graduation came along, I tried the college thing. Went to Lone Star College over in North Harris.
Well, let me ask you this. What made you make that decision? Was it, you know, what's going through your mind at this time? Why did you decide to do the college route?
So, I mean, basically, I hung out with the better kids of the school, you know, people that wanted a future. A lot of them were talking big, like, hey, man, I'm trying to go to A&M. I'm trying to go to UT. I'm trying to go here. I'm trying to go there. I played football in high school, and a lot of them were like, man, I'm trying to get in this school, play for this school. Some of my friends actually went on full rides, Oregon State, stuff like that. So I was like, man, I can't be the bum, you know what I'm saying, of my friends. Everybody's trying to be successful. I got to follow suit. Mm-hmm. So, I was a brilliant kid in high school. I always had really good grades. I was a good kid. I didn't skip. I didn't do none of that crazy stuff.
You applied yourself, yeah.
So I wasn't the bad kid. I was a regular kid at school. I was just trying to do good for myself. And so I tried the college thing, and it didn't work out. Just for whatever reason, college just not for everybody.
Yeah.
And so I was like, hey, you know what? And at the time, I remember this is when I had first graduated. I had a friend from church. She had her own business. She had a teacher supply business. And it was literally across the street from my high school. So I was like, hey, man, can I work here? And she was like, yeah, absolutely. And one of my close friends, he worked there as well. And he was like, hey, man, this would be awesome. We work together, this and that. It was a minimum wage job, which it wasn't bad for,
Yeah, but you're still in high school at the time, or you just got out of high school?
I had just graduated,
okay.
Yes. So I was like, this would be cool. I'll be able to, have some money to go out and stuff,
Well, let's be honest with each other. Let's call a spade a spade. When you're fresh out of high school, any job is a good job.
Absolutely.
You could get a job flipping burgers at McDonald's for minimum wage, 30 hours a week, and it's a good job. Mm-hmm. Let's be, again, very candid. Any opportunity you can get at that age is valuable. If you right now are watching this and you're not happy with where you are, and it's okay to have ambition and desire to advance, but value the relationships, value your opportunity, take advantage of your opportunity. I'm a firm believer. If someone gives you a shot, what you're talking about is, hey, look, I'm fresh out of high school. I didn't have the greatest upbringing. I'm trying to make ends meet. I decided to try the college route, and it didn't work out. And now I have a friend who owns a business, and she gave me an opportunity. Man, that's a valuable thing.
Absolutely. So I started working there, and I ran the warehouse, the whole stocking register, and it was a good job. I was able to build customer service, and it was a teacher supply. So especially around like the August timeline is when a lot of teachers are coming in because they're trying to get ready for the next school year. Mm-hmm. So that's when most of the income came into the business. And she would hire 10, 12 people around that time. Mm-hmm. And I was always like, man, I know I'm working hourly. I'm not making commission off of any of this stuff. But I wanted to sell. It was like people would come in and like, I'm just looking for this. Say, for example, somebody's coming in trying to look for something with Martin Luther King in it, right? Mm-hmm. I'd be like, okay, we got these posters. And they'll be like, okay, cool, appreciate it. And then I would just stay there. And they'll be like, what? Yeah. And I'll be like, hey, actually, I got some other stuff over here that you might want to look at. Yeah. So they'll go over there. They'll grab that same thing, borders, just even to the minimum, like as far as a pencil that had Martin Luther King written on it. Yeah. I was trying to sell it. Yeah. I wasn't making commission off of it, but I was just like, this is fun,
Well, yeah, that was my question. Is at that time in your life, why is it that you had this drive to sell? Was it to bring this satisfaction of success, or was it just because you genuinely enjoyed it?
I genuinely enjoyed it because, like I said, if it was about success, it'd be backed up with commission. I'd be like, okay, no, I got to make more money. I got to do these sales to make more money, right? This was more about, I enjoy this. I can really just be standing there registered, ringing stuff, or I can be out there helping people out, And I really enjoyed it. And I mean, we made a lot of money for my boss, and she was very grateful because a lot of the people there actually were from the church. And so we all knew each other at a personal level, It was a fun job. And I mean, I think I was there for maybe a year and a half to maybe 2 years. I can't really remember, but at some point you're like, at this time I was still living with my parents. So I didn't really have a lot of bills or none of that, So it was more of like, I need a job so I don't look like a bum out here,
Yeah.
And so, I got a job there. My sister actually worked next door. It was a Christian bookstore where they sell like music and stuff back when CDs were a thing.
Yeah.
So she was sitting there selling Bibles, just stuff for the church. 2 doors down, I was selling stuff for school. So even like people would come in for like school supplies and stuff like that. And so I would enjoy helping families. And the thing is, this was in the Alden area, so it was very low income families. And a lot of them were very intimidated by, like they're coming in and like, can I really afford this? Mm-hmm. So I'll walk up. I'll be excited. I'll be like, hey, how you doing? Let me help you out. I'll go over there. I'll put a big bag, and I'll just start putting the supplies in there. I'll ask them what their budget was, and then I'll just start adding it all up for them and make sure that, they were able to get stuff for their kid. And so it was a very fun job. I'm not going to lie. I enjoyed it a lot. But at a certain point, you're like, I got to make more money because I had other friends that were like graduated with me. And
how long were you there?
Just under 2 years.
Okay. So what I can identify and acknowledge that you're conveying well is, hey, listen, this was a great opportunity and I enjoyed it and it was fun. But in the course of that 2 years, the friends I have, they have advanced. It's not that I'm not doing well and I think on the sliding scale I'm not doing well, but I'm seeing, hey, my friends are starting to kind of climb the socioeconomic ladder and I'm still kind of where I was. Because, let's be honest, you get in some of these entry-level positions that are, quite frankly, designed, in the capitalist society for young guys. There's a lot of positions like that, right? Like, you're not supposed to, be a cashier at McDonald's for 10 years. You're not. The design and business model of certain, different, places we are looking to hire people fresh out of high school. We're looking for place fillers, and there's nothing bad about that. That's just the place in the world. But they're not long-term places. They're not designed to be long-term places. You're not supposed to spend 20 years there. You're supposed to go, hey, this was a means to the next step. So you kind of felt, hey, my time here is expiring and it's time for me to make my next step.
Absolutely.
Where did that take you?
And so going back to what I was saying, as far as I see other friends that were making it, I was like, man, I mean, they weren't getting rich, but they were doing a lot better than minimum wage, at my age. And I was just like, hey, something's not adding up here. I'm doing all this work, doing all this stuff, and my money wasn't looking right, So I was just like, okay. Like I was telling one of my friends earlier today, and I'm never gonna forget this. This is actually, and he probably doesn't know this, but this actually affected me, and it's been a drive for me, as a young person. I remember I was probably making, my biggest check ever 2 weeks, about $700, and I was happy. I was like, oh yeah, but I'm winning. And then it was one time we were all hanging out, and he was like, hey, I need to go cash my check. And this is for 1 week. Mm-hmm. He was made $1,300. I'm never going to forget that. Yeah. And I was like, bro, I thought I was on top of the world with my $700. And then he made $1,300 in 1 week. I was like, oh, man, something's not – I need to make a change.
Okay.
So I approached my boss, and I said, hey, I want to level up. I appreciate the opportunity you gave me being able to work here, but I need to take the next step. So I had a really close friend of mine in high school. He started a journeyman. I guess he started going to school to become an electrician. Mm-hmm. And he's like, hey, man, this would be a great opportunity for you. I know you're doing good there. You feel comfortable where you are. But this would be a very great opportunity for you. So I said, okay, cool. So I went, I applied, did the whole application, all that stuff. And they hired me. So I was like, okay, cool. So I went and talked to my boss. So I got hired before I even told my boss I got another job. So I walked over to her and I said, hey, these people are willing to pay me this amount. You're paying me this amount. Are you willing to match it? She said, I can't. I said, okay, cool. I got to go. So I gave her my 2 weeks notice. So I was working part-time. I would go like Tuesday, Thursday.
Well, my first question is, at that time, I know you mentioned a second ago that you and another friend were working at that job.
Correct.
Right? So when you found this other opportunity that you decided to take, did he see that and decide maybe he needed to pivot as well, or did he stay?
No, he stayed. I left with this friend from high school.
So a different friend.
Different friend, correct. Okay. And so
are all three of you guys relatively the same age?
About, yeah.
Okay.
The one that stayed is a little bit older than I am, but the other guy, he's maybe like a month younger than me or so.
So the first question I have, right, and keep in mind, a lot of the questions are sometimes designed for you and sometimes designed for me and sometimes designed for the masses of people who could learn from you, and that's the whole premise of what we're doing here. What about the guy who stayed? Did you have a conversation with him and say, hey, buddy, I'm getting ready to leave. This is the reasons why, or did you just kind of, how did that play out?
Yeah, in a way. I mean, I wasn't like, hey, bro, like this sucks. It was more of like, hey, I found an opportunity. I'm moving on. Like, you trying to come? And he decided to stay. Okay. Which he's a very loyal friend, and I understand that because he was very loyal to that the boss at the time. He was like, I need to take care of her. She took care of me. So he stayed. So I left. And so I started working as a journeyman licensman, and I did it for about a year. And something happened, and I decided, hey, this ain't for me no more. So I left that. So I was at this time I was still working. I was still living with my parents. So I mean, I didn't have a lot of expenses up. I had my car. That's probably pretty much it. Just my phone bill, my insurance, and my car bill, which wasn't much. And so I was like, hey, you know what? This is a good change, but it didn't work out for me. So I left that job, and I was unemployed for maybe, I want to say 3 years. Mm-hmm. I mean, no, I'm sorry, 3 months, not 3 years. Okay, I'm tripping, man. Okay. 3 months. And during that time, one of my really close friends from church, because I was very involved in the music, man, we started a band at the school. I mean, at the church. Man, when we were young, we were probably like 13. Mm-hmm. So we were preteens, you know. We were like, hey, we want to do a little hobby. So we started a band at the church, and it was all, you know, young people. And he was the guitarist, and you know, we just became really close. You know, he was like a brother to me. I felt like I needed to look out for him. He felt like he needed to look out for me.
Yeah.
And this was back in 2014, and this is around the time that I had left that other job with the electric company.
Okay.
And something happened one day. My mom called me. She was like, "Hey," this is when I had already left that job. So all I did was work out every day, all day, every day. And my mom called me. She's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm working out in the garage." And she said, "I need you to have a seat." So I said, "Okay, cool." And she's like, "We just got news that Danny passed away," and that hurt, you know. And to this day, you know, that still hurts because for a long time I felt very responsible for him. I was like his big brother, you know.
Yeah.
So I went through, I'm not going to say a deep depression because, I mean, I was able to bounce back pretty quick. But for about a month, man, it was tough. It was tough. And I was like, man, I got to get busy. I got to get my mind busy. Mm-hmm. So there was a guy at church. He had a route that he delivered electric supplies. He's like, "Hey, man, I see that you mentioned at the church today you were looking for a job. I'm actually looking for somebody to be able to run my route. It's a flat truck, one of those flatbeds. Mm-hmm. Like all you got to do is supply EMT from the warehouse to whatever project is going on, commercial business, right?" Mm-hmm. And so I did that for about, I want to say 4 months, and then the truck broke down. So I was like, okay, this ain't work out, but at least it got me out of that hole, you know.
Time out. The truck broke down, yeah, and then there was just business over?
Well, this was like a side hustle for him. Like the guy, he was a foreman for a big construction company. So he was
just doing this on private contract.
Correct.
So when his truck broke down, he just threw the hands up.
He was just like, all right, whatever.
Well.
Good luck in life. That's basically what he told me. He was like, good luck in life. I was just like, cool. You know, I mean, it wasn't bad. I was making more money there than I was when I was an electrician.
Yeah.
So that happened.
And that happened suddenly. So let's recap for a second, right? So we get out of high school and we didn't have the best upbringing, so we're trying to make it happen. We're trying to get into the workforce, and we don't really know what we're doing. So we find an opportunity with a family friend, and she gives us a job. But then we identify, hey, these guys are making more money than me. I need to shake this up. So then another opportunity comes up from a friend, and that just didn't pan out because I don't think that was in your cards. So then from that, you know, obviously some very hardship comes into play, and that kind of shakes the can up. So at this point, I think we can identify we're just kind of taking opportunities as they come. At this point in life, you hadn't really established what you wanted to do.
No, I mean, even in high school, man, people already knew what they wanted. Like, oh, I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that. And I'm sitting there like, I don't know what I want to do.
So at that time, the time we're at in this timeline, how old are we? You know, around this time when the truck breaks down, as we say.
And this was 2014, so I was in my early 20s.
Okay. And you still don't really know what you want to do in life.
Correct.
Okay, so first off, let's stop there. Let's take a quick pause. Guys, early 20s, still don't know what we want, and it worked out. So if you're there, don't stress. It's okay. And more importantly, I believe through your entire 20s, you can pivot as many times as need be. You can start something, fail at it, start another thing, fail at it, try this, fail at it. You know, your 20s, man, let's just call this the experimental phase. You know, you don't really need to figure out what you want to do until that clock starts ticking, and that clock starts ticking at about 30. 30, you need to get stuff together. You need to find a wife. You need to learn how to, you know, replicate yourself. Absolutely. So, all right, so great. So we're now, you know, early 20s, truck breaks down. We're still kind of just floating the workplace, just trying to make ends meet. Where does that go?
Correct. So at this time, my parents actually started their own church. So they became pastors. And so I was like, okay, I lost that job because of the whole truck situation. So I was like, okay, I can get a little bit more involved in church, kind of, stay busy with it, And so a guy at church, he worked at a Dodge dealership here in the Houston area. And he was like, hey, they're actually hiring at the warehouse for delivery. You might want to go apply since you have the experience from the other truck. So I said, okay, I'll go, just to see what's up. They hired me. They were like, hey, you seem like a cool person. Let's go ahead and put you on. So I said, okay, cool. And at this was there in the Houston area, and across the street from there was an LA Fitness. And so I was like, okay, I'm working here, beat traffic, because I lived about an hour away from there. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, man, I'm going to be stuck in traffic, so it's going to be longer than that. So I might as well just go gym, work out, whatever, So I walk over to the LA Fitness, and I hit it off with the general manager, Anthony. And, he signed me up for member. I was ready to go sign up. I was like, hey, I need a membership. I remember it was a closeout. They had like balloons and all that stuff. So I was like, what the heck is this? Like, y'all doing too much. This is a gym, bro.
It's the today only day.
Yeah, facts. And so, he was like, we were just talking while I was doing the membership. He was very talkative. I'm very talkative. So, just kind of hit it off. And he was like, hey, man, I like you. Have you ever done sales before? And I said, I don't consider my teacher supply job as sales, but I like talking to people. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, hey, I feel like you'd do good here. So I said, all right, cool, man, whatever, He's like, right now I'm not hiring, but I'm getting ready to promote somebody, and so I'm gonna need to fill in that spot. So I said, okay, cool. So I was like, well, just let me know whenever you're ready. And so I'll go work out. I was still working at the Dodge dealership at the time. And one day it wasn't my head, but I wasn't thinking about it. Like I wasn't going to the fence looking at him like, hey, you hiring? Yeah. I was just like, all right, hey. Yeah. And so one day he just walked up to me. I was in the weight room, and he was like, hey, you still interested in working for me? And I said, shoot, let's do it. Because, that Dodge dealership job was just kind of like a
placeholder.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was like, I'm not going to do this forever. These guys, there was adults there that were making like less than $15 an hour. I was like, brother, there's no future here. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, this just gives me something to do. And he was like, hey.
Don't work at Dodge. He said it out of his mouth.
Well, so he was like, hey, man, you can make some really good money with LA Fitness. And I said, bro, this is gym memberships. What are you talking about? Mm-hmm. He's like, I'm telling you, man, you move up in the ladder, you can make some serious money. And I said, well, shoot. All right, let's get on. And so he hired me. This was in October. And so I was very excited. He put
October
me on
of what year?
2014, I'm sorry. Okay. So it was that same year that my friend passed away. So a lot happened that year. That was probably one of my craziest years. I'm summarizing it, but of course, there's a lot of months in that year, and things went everywhere.
There's 12 months in that year.
So, you know what I mean. And so I was like, okay, October, this will be a good, reset button for me. And, man, the guy, well-dressed, very professional. He's an ex-Marine veteran, so very well-spoken. And so I was like, hey.
Let me first acknowledge real quick before I get beat up. Anthony, the gentleman he's discussing in this story, is now currently one of my business partners in my other company. And I know him very well. I've got a great deal of respect for the guy. But at the time of this story and the dialogue of this story, I didn't know Anthony yet. So I'm kind of excited to hear this at the time.
Yeah, so like I said, very, very professional guy. So I was like, I can really learn from him, Every job that I've had, I really never really had any leadership. It was more of like, that's my boss, Mm-hmm. Hi, how you doing? Never really had an interaction with him. But this guy, he was my general manager. He was very involved. I was hired at sales as a sales counselor, and I was like, he's like, this job is literally gonna make you what you put into it. So whatever you put into it is the amount of money you're gonna make. I was like, I like that because I was telling him my old job, I was doing all backflips and all this stuff for the company, but I was still making them hourly. Mm-hmm. Like, I like that. I've never worked commission before, so this was all new to me at the time.
Yeah. Let me take a pause and ask you a question. We're going to continue the story, but let me ask you a question. Now that you know what you know, and when I say that, I mean both knowledge and understanding of how sales operates, and secondly, the notion of how confident you are in your own personal abilities and endeavors, what do you think about commission-based positions?
It's great. I don't think I can ever go back to an hourly job.
Because you're confident in the fact that you can execute.
Absolutely. So,
now, the question I ask, and it's tough I ask this to people, but it's tough for you to evaluate this question truthfully because you're not. But let's say hypothetically you were lazy. Would a commission-based position be good or bad?
It would suck so it was based on a draw versus commission. So let's say you didn't reach a certain amount of sales, you would just make draw, which was minimum wage. So if you were lazy, you were either going to get fired because Anthony didn't tolerate any of that. He was tough. And so if you weren't making the sales that he needed you to make, you were out. Or if he decided to keep you just because you were in the learning process, you were only going to make minimum wage.
Yeah.
So I hit the ground running. I got to make some money. This is an opportunity for me. Let's get it going, So he taught me the system. He taught me this and that. Probably took him about a week maybe, I want to say. And, man, I was going. I remember he was like, the walk-ins are for – so you know how gym memberships work, right? Somebody walks in and says, hey, I want a membership. Easy sell. They're already ready. They just want a membership, right?
In sales, they're considered – listen, the business he's discussing is very internal. Some of the lingo we used were for that business. But there are things that go across the vast majority of sales. No matter what you sell cars, Girl Scout cookies, gym memberships, knives, door-to-door. We all know what a laydown is.
Correct.
It's a laydown.
So most walk-ins were laydowns because this was a very busy club at the time. And so he was like, if you're going to get a walk-in, you're going to earn that walk-in. He wasn't about that just giving out stuff, He was like, you're going to earn your money. So I remember at the time, he was like, I need production from you. We need a hit. Man, we had really high goal at the time. He was like, it was me and two other sales counselors, the assistant manager, and him. And between all of us, we needed close to 20 memberships. So we were all responsible per day, correct. And so I was like, well, this is my number. This is what I need to hit. But I wasn't focusing on that. I was like, I need to hit whatever the assistant manager's number is because that's the only way that I'm be considered to move up. Right?
Yeah.
So I remember I had a sales counselor, even my assistant management, they would just hang out at the club and go talk to people randomly. Like, you got a referral? I remember we had a tent in the back, and I said, hey, how does that work? He's like, you go pop it somewhere and try to get memberships. So I said, okay, bet. I didn't tell the other guys where I was going. So I was like, okay. So I would just grab the tent. I remember I was a morning guy. So I got there at 8 in the morning. I did the 8 to 5. But in commissions, you're not worried about that time. You're worried about your goal. You know what I'm saying? So every day I was like, this is how many memberships I need. I'm not leaving until I get it. So there were days that I was working from 8 to like 10 p.m. There was no time for me. It was like, I need to hit my goal and this is the amount of money I need to make. So it was a sacrifice that I had to make. I was still young. I didn't have kids. I didn't have a wife at the time. So it was more of, I can leave at 5 when I'm basically supposed to leave, or I can stay and hit my number. So even the numbers that Anthony would give me, I would be like, that's easy. That's cake, right? So I would grab that tent, and I found a spot over by the it was a new location popping up pretty soon, and I just popped it up there, and I was just banging memberships, man. It was left and right. And so I would come back with manuals. This is what we called the contracts at the time. And he would be like, where the heck are you getting all these memberships from? I was writing more than the general manager, the assistant manager were together. And they're like, where the heck are you getting? I would probably, man, on average, I was probably bringing back like 6 to 7 manuals a day just from going out. I was like, I could sit here and wait for my turn to get a walk-in or a TI or which is a telephone inquiry, or a guest pass, try to convince them to sign up. Or I can go out there and look for my own business. And that's what I did. I would sit under a tent. People were looking at funny. I remember they used to honk at me and be like, loser, stuff like that, And in the back of my head, I was like, I don't care. I'm about to do what I need to do to move up because that was my goal.
Well, let me ask you this, and I've asked this question on pretty much everybody who's been on this show and everyone who I know it sells. That drive, let's first just break down what you're saying for a second. Number one, you're saying, hey, listen, I'm in the business of sales. I've got a schedule that I've been assigned, but I don't care about the schedule because I'm trying to make sales that are going to help me make money. Therefore, your drive to be successful in the game of sales has taken precedence over your time. Do you believe you can be born with that? Is that something you need to be born with, or do you believe you can learn that?
A little bit of both. 'Cause there's a such thing as an introvert and extrovert. So a lot of people are going to find it a little harder to do stuff. So like for me, this kind of stuff was uncomfortable because I've never done this, like recording, have somebody sitting there with cameras. That's weird to me. But I walk up to a stranger. Even my wife right now, she gets mad at me because I'll be standing at a Target line right now and I'll start talking to the person behind me. She's like, "Stop doing that. That's weird." You know. So I've always been like that all my life, and I also feel like that hustle in me started because of the childhood that I had. You know, being homeless, being in the shelter. I remember the first house we got fresh out of the shelter. Man, it was sitting on blocks. So you know what that is. You know, it's not a good area. You know, so. Man, I remember we would walk and the table would move. We were like, "Hey, don't move while we're eating dinner because stuff will slide." I mean, at the time sucked, but now I'm grateful for it because it put a drive in me that, you know, a lot of people don't get to experience that because, you know, their life wasn't like that.
So I also believe that too, right? If I would have asked myself that question, do you have to be born with that level of grit, right? You know, the last episode we had Sam on, and Sam talked about exactly what my belief system is. I believe you don't have to be born with it. I think there are people who are born with it. I think there are people who are born with God-given talents that some of us will never have. I will never have the vertical LeBron James has. Didn't matter if I worked out every day and dedicated my work towards it. I wouldn't have it. I was not born with that. I was not born with Ja Morant, you know, leap. I was not born with Patrick Mahomes' arm. There are things that you are born with. But there are also things that mentally will snap. And unfortunately, or circumstantially, it snaps and you have to dictate how you respond. I think the vast majority of people on this earth, if you handed them a card, a blank card, and said, write down the toughest thing you have ever endured in life, I think 7 out of 10 people would have a card that made you go, wow. Like, wow, they went through a lot. The difference is how you respond to it. Did you go through that, and did you mold or did you fold? And I think what's similar between you and I think it's a big reason why we've connected well before this show, is when that snap happened, that downside, that thing that really turned life sour. It turned into a chip on your shoulder that you had. You know, you had to dedicate your life to making it happen. There were no excuses that were going to be accepted. I think when you come from good circumstances, I'm not saying you can't be successful. I think you can have a great head start and people can mold you to be extremely successful. But I think when you've come from a tough spot and you've witnessed what it's like, you conjure up this mindset that I'm not staying here. Like, I've been here. I know what it's like. I'm not staying here. I'm going to get out of here, you know, metaphorically speaking, and I'm not coming back. And I think that's also what fuels you to do well, but then also makes you manage the success so it doesn't go backwards. You know, and we'll dive into your current endeavors and kind of how you balance being successful and not kind of slingshotting back, which is a big question I ask successful people. So let's kind of sum the story. So we're now in, you know, LA Fitness. We're doing well. We're a sales counselor. Where does that take you, and how does that get you into the real estate game?
So I was one of the higher performing sales counselors at the time. This is, of course, entry-level sales for the gym. But I was like, I need to move up. I need to make some serious money. And so, I mean, and thank you, Anthony, because he fought for me. He was like, there was other people in line to get promoted, and he was like, no, this guy deserves it. And I remember the VP called me, and he was like, hey, do you feel like you're ready to move up? And I said, absolutely. And so he moved me to a busier club. And when I got there, I remember I was like, oh, man, this is next level. Mm-hmm. You know, if I thought the goal on the other gym was huge, this one was way more because it was one of their heavy hitters. Mm-hmm. So I went in there, you know, and at this time I was like, okay, I need to be more independent. I moved out of my home, and I got an apartment across the street from that gym. And so I was the assistant, so I was in charge of like the weekends when the general manager wasn't there, and then during the week I was in charge of making sure that the sales counselors were performing. So that the
sales manager.
Yeah, so the general manager looked more over like the overhead profit and all that stuff, making sure their cancellations were low. And you know, still was in charge of sales, but mostly it came down on the assistant manager, which is also considered a sales manager. And so it was fast-paced. I was thinking more of like, okay, I'm going to get promoted. It's going to get easier. It got harder, you know, because now they're coming down on you like a manager. You know, it's not, okay, I missed my number this day. It's cool, you know, whatever. I can make it up the next day. This was more of, you missed the number. Hey, man, get it together or I'm going to replace you type thing, you know? So I was like, okay, this is how this business is. It's cool. I can handle it, you know?
Well, let me ask you this real quick. So you're now in a very high-level sales position, right? And this is technically a sales manager position for those of you guys watching. It's a very goal-oriented company. You have a set number. You either hit or you didn't. You either passed or you failed. And that comes with a lot of pressure to perform on a daily basis.
Correct.
Is that pressure something that you hated? Did you not like it? Did you enjoy it? Was it something you prospered through? Is it something you wish you didn't have? How did you mentally respond to that?
It was a fire that, you know, it was like, okay, I can't get comfortable, you know, because one day, let's say you do really good on a Monday. You come in Tuesday, you got to do it again. Wednesday, do it again. It was never he did great on Monday. Once that day was over, it was over. Starting from zero, you know. And so I feel like that pressure really helped me, especially where I'm at now, because the job that I'm at now is not as pressuring. But I keep that feeling as if it is, you know, because it keeps me going. Like, hey, where am I getting my next deal from? Where am I getting my next deal from? And so I did pretty decent there, and they moved me over to a different location that was struggling a little bit, and I was killing it there, man. I had a team there that for a little bit, man, they were actually more bought into to me than my general manager, which I feel bad because I really liked the guy. But those guys, they would go to war for me. I'm talking about on the weekends, these guys were coming in early and leaving when we closed, you know. And during the week, I mean, they would just work their regular schedule.
How did you get them to do that? If I'm someone in the sales game, or I'm a newly promoted sales manager, I'm trying to lead a sales organization, how did you get guys to want to follow you? How did you get guys to buy into you? What is it that you did in that situation that made guys go, hey, I'm going to show up early, I'm going to stay late, I'm going to be a part of this process, and I want to make sure you win?
Lead by example. Because a lot of people, especially in the sales management, it's more of like, go do this, go do that, go do this. I kind of switched it up a little bit. It was, let's go do this. So I would tell them, like, let's go in my car. Let's go. And so these guys were like, oh, these guys, he's going in the trenches with us. He's not just telling us what to do. He's going out there and showing us how to do it. So and when I would get deals, man, I'd put it in their names. You know, I'd be like, hey, look. So they're like, this guy's out there hustling with us, and he's not even taking the commission for it. So, of course, these guys were working just commission. I was working hourly and commission. So I was like, okay, I'm still getting paid. I'm still getting some type of bonus, you know, at the end of the month. So I was like, I got to get these guys to really, because that's what's going to make my job easier, is getting people.
But when you did that, it was a conscious decision that, hey, I'm going to do this to help you, because at the end of the day, not in a malicious way, but in a camaraderie way, I want you to buy into me so we can do this together.
Correct.
You made that decision before you started doing those actions.
Absolutely.
Like that was a plan. Okay.
Yeah, so I remember, because so at this time, I had found out, this was when I was at Sugarland. My girlfriend at the time, she was like, hey, we're going to have a baby. And I was just like, oh, shoot, I wasn't ready for that. You know, I remember the day she told me I froze. I didn't know what to say. I was just, you know, I froze. And she still messes with me to this day. But I was like, this is a big responsibility.
So this happened in that timeline?
Correct. This was the end of 2015, December. Around there.
So she comes to you and says, hey, we're pregnant.
Correct.
And you blocked her number.
No.
I'm kidding.
So
I was the best man at this wedding. She would kill me when she sees me.
Yeah. Great girl. But when she told me, I was like, I got to take this to the next level. Because in my head, I was like, I grew up without a father. I mean, I still have my stepdad in my life, but it's not the same, you know. And so I was like, I got to be in my boy's life. I got to make sure that he has a good life. So I was making decent money.
All these things, these thoughts, hey, I've got to win. I've got to make sure we win. I've got to make sure my son or my daughter has the opportunities I didn't have. These crossed your mind. They physically crossed your mind.
Absolutely.
And that's what motivated you to take your employment, your place in the marketplace to another level. You made that decision. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So at the time, I was killing it there. I was like, okay, I'm doing good. I'm doing well. And there were my VP at the time. He was like, hey, we're taking on a new market out in Austin. And I was like, man, that's a whole different city. I think I've been to Austin one time before that. And it wasn't for work. It was more as a tourist. So I'm like, I mean, Austin is cool, you know. And so he was like, but you would have to leave the Houston market to go to Austin. And we would basically be promoting you. And he told me straight up from the front, he was like, hey, where I'm sending you is going to suck. It's not a good situation. Right now you're comfortable, you're good, you're killing it. But where I'm sending you, it's going to be complete opposite.
So I want to take a pause for a second before we get into this chapter of the story, because this is the part of the story where let's eliminate the concept of this podcast. This is where I, Kevin Ebbs, come into this story. Yeah. Now, the perspective that he has is not one of me. I could give you my perspective, but this isn't my episode. So it's exciting to hear how this plays out in his mind, because this is when I become relevant. So we're listening.
So, you know, I talked to Connie, my wife now, and I told her, I said, hey, it's just something that I'm going to have to do if I want to move up and be able to, you know, take care of you.
So after she announces to you that she's pregnant, how long after is it that you get the opportunity to move from Houston to Austin, which is a big move?
About a month after. So
okay. So you pull her to the side and you say, hey, we need to talk.
And everybody, my mom too, she was like, don't do it. Don't do it. You got people here. Don't do it. We'll help you. And I said, no, I need to do this myself, you know.
What does Connie, your girlfriend at the time, say?
She was like, no.
At this time in life, how long had y'all been together?
We started dating in 2012.
And this story takes place in what, 2016?
End of 2015.
Okay. Yeah, all right. So y'all been together a good while.
3 years, yeah.
So she says no, mom says no. Yeah. Does anyone say yes?
Just my baby.
Okay, well, obviously.
Because he needed me, yeah. He needed
obviously me. Obviously that. So before you continue the story, I want to ask this. Everyone personally is saying no. Mom says no. Girlfriend, who's now about to be the mother of my child, says no. All my counsel says no. The only person telling me I should move up and pack my stuff and move, you know, across the state is my boss, obviously. Why did you do it? What made you do it?
I wanted to grow. You know, I felt like I was comfortable where I got, because from when I got hired at LA Fitness, it was always a drive. It was always like, hey, what's the next move? What's the next move? When I got there, I was doing very well. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, I'm good. I'm good here. Why move, you know? Eventually, I might be able to take this guy's spot, you know? These guys love me. So front desk, kids, everybody in there, trainers. I was cool with everybody there. And so, but I was like, no, I need to move up. If I want to be able to provide a good, and keep in mind, this is something that I was going to consider a career for a long time. Yeah. Because it was just the ambiance, the environment of the company that I loved. You know, it was family oriented. People were always hustling. Somebody was trying to always, you know, be the top guy. And I was like, I always want to be that top guy.
You wanted to be around this. So this was a long-term thing in your mind.
Correct.
And you wanted to move up the ladder. So you saw this as, hey, this is my chance to climb the ladder, which I believe, listen, we could talk about the name of the company as much as we want. It's called LA Fitness. But what this really is corporate America. We wanted to climb the ladder in corporate America. That desire will never go away. You could start at J.P. Morgan Chase. You could start at LA Fitness. You could start at any, you know, Goldman Sachs. The drive to climb the socioeconomic ladder in corporate America will always exist. So in this story, you're saying that drive outweighed the notion of the no's.
Absolutely.
You wanted it more than you were willing to listen to the no's.
Yes.
And were you confident you could make it happen?
Yes.
Or was it kind of a roll of dice?
It was scary. I was gambling it because I didn't know where I was going. I never been to Austin. I didn't even know where I was going to live.
And I appreciate that. The reason I say that is because there's a lot of people who are waiting on sure bets. There's a lot of people in life who are waiting on the freaking weather to be right and the cards to be dealt correctly and everything to make sense. And they're like, I'm going to jump off whenever I see a sign. Listen, it ain't going to feel right. Jump off the cliff and go make it happen. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what you did. Yeah. So you moved to Austin. Tell us how that went down.
So I remember I had one basket in the back seat, and that was it, with clothes and just stuff that I needed, right? And I drove to Austin. I remember it was a Sunday. It was the Sunday that before the Super Bowl when the Broncos and the Panthers played. Mm-hmm. And so I remember I drove there. I had nowhere to stay. I literally went there blind. I showed up to the gym that I was going to be taking over, just to see what's up. And I pulled up my Google Maps at the time, and I said, nearest hotel. And I remember I stayed in one of those extended hotels. Mm-hmm. I pulled up, and they said, how long? And I said, I don't know. Put me up for at least a week, and then if I need to re-up, I'll re-up another week after that. Okay. So she said, okay. And then I remember I was sitting there watching the Pro Bowl at the time. And that's when you came in the picture, and you texted me and said, hey, we're going to go meet at this restaurant.
And at the time, we didn't know at all. You had never met me in life.
I had never met him. I've heard of him, but never knew of you, you know. I remember the VP even told me, he's like, hey, this guy's going to teach you. He's one of my heavy hitters. And I said, okay, I'm excited. So I got to Austin. You shoot me a text, hey, I want to get together so we can all kind of meet each other. Mm-hmm. Showed up at the restaurant, and I'm sitting there. This guy's an asshole. I was like, I know 100% sure we're going to butt heads. I was just like, I'm a loyal guy. I like to, I listen to authority, but I was just like, this guy's just coming off as the biggest asshole I've ever met in my life. And so I was like, all right, whatever. I'm here. I'm not worried about nobody else. I'm here to make my money for my boy. I was like, I'm here for the mission. So I showed up at the gym. It was one of the crappiest gyms ever. It was in a great market. So I was at the gym maybe 2 months, and then my VP was like, "Hey, we're opening up a new location. Do you want to take over?" And I said, "Absolutely." Because with new gym, people are ready to go. It doesn't matter what you're charging them. They see a new gym, they're like, "I want to sign up." Mm-hmm. So I was like, "This is going to be a great opportunity." So when I was at that club, like I said, I was homeless, technically. And then that's when I went to, the VP was like, hey, contact this guy. He'll tell you, he has a place there. He's already stabilized. So that's when I hit you up.
Yeah, but you got to remember, we may know the story, but they don't. So you're going to have to explain it.
So I remember it was a Sunday. So it was already a weekend. My hotel membership had already expired. They're like, hey, you're done at 6 p.m. Mm-hmm. So I need to find a place to live. So that's when I had texted you, and you were like, yeah.
And at this time, keep in mind, I don't know the perspective of the story. So at this time, you're like, hey, I need a place to live. And I remember I was living in a very nice luxury, apartment complex in Upper Austin. I think it was called Cedar Park. And,
I don't remember.
Cedar Park off the Lake Line. I've got great memory. And, they were looking for more people. It's just been built. I think I was the first person living there. My washing machine wasn't even bolted down. It was brand new. So at that time, am I still just the asshole, or, is there more rapport at this point?
It was more of desperation.
Got to make it. There's no choice
My
anyway.
boss is like, this guy lives there. He's already gotten a place to live. He might be able to guide you. So that's when I reached out to you, and you were like, oh, yeah, absolutely. So I'm thinking, this guy's nice, man. He actually cares. Okay, whatever. I was wrong. Turns out you were just looking for the referral fee.
$1,000, baby. Okay.
So, I moved in, got a place there. I got the new location. I was making more money than I've ever made in my life. Because, mind you, I went from minimum wage to $11 to $13 to, as a sales counselor, I was probably making decent money. Assistant manager, I was making, pretty decent. And so now I'm sitting there, new location, got a squad there. They're all prepped because they did a pre-sale. So all I did was literally just go over there and
show
up, and they were ready to go. So
I'm
I was
aware.
like, this is a great situation for me. So, we were sitting there, and then that's when you got promoted actually to vice president at the place. So he ended up being my boss. So I was like, okay, cool. I can tolerate it. And then at this time, Connie, she moved in with me.
In Austin.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, I'll take you in. It's funny. It's a funny story because when we told her parents she was pregnant, she was already thinking, like, they're going to kick me out. So she's like, I'm going to go get my things. And they're looking at her like, why are you? No, you can stay here. We're going to take care of you. And she's like, no, I want to go with Marco. Like this, we want to be able to do this together, So she was pregnant in Austin. She moved with me. And we were doing pretty well in that location. Did great. And so that's when I was like, okay, I can't have my baby here because all my family's in Houston. Mm-hmm. So that's when I requested a transfer. So I got transferred back to Houston, had my boy, best experience of my life. And it changes you. Once you start, it stops being about you and it starts being about them,
Mm-hmm. Well, let me ask you this. Let's take a second because I've spoke with a lot of people who've talked about the moment, and I'll refer to the moment in a second, but it's the moment everything changes. And, I was reading a quote, I think I was reading an article, it was probably a couple of weeks back, and it was about Ryan Reynolds. And he was talking about how he told his wife, you're the most important person on planet Earth. I would do anything for you. I would never let anything hurt you. And then in that article, he said that there was a moment where he went and said the moment he saw his baby, he looked at his wife dead in the face and said, I would sacrifice you for this baby.
It changes you, man. It's crazy because, it becomes, cliche that people are like, oh, yeah, I have a kid and, like, oh, I'm going to be more responsible. But it actually it's a different. You don't know until you actually experience it, you know. So the whole time I was going in there like, okay, I'm gonna be a dad, cool, you know, whatever. But when it actually happens, you're like, now this life depends on me.
When did you feel that? Like, when did that hit you? Was it immediately seeing him?
Oh, right there and then.
Or did it happen before? Was it like when you realized, oh, this is about to happen? I mean, when did it hit?
At first, it's a little subtle. You know, it's like, okay, I'm gonna be a dad. It's kind of, you know, you're nervous, whatever. You know, how am I gonna do this? I never really took a course on how to be a dad. But when when I held him, it just changed everything
Immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was like, I'm a dad. I'm a father. You know, and I was like, this is my boy. And I mean, it was awesome. And I was like, man, I got to step my game up. So I went back to Houston to reset, had my little boy, and then that's when you had went to the DFW market, and you're like, hey, we're getting ready to open a location that, by the way, never opened. Almost a year later, but I was like, let's do it again. I'm ready for round 2 because I saw how successful it was on the Austin location. I was like, yeah, new location in DFW, bigger cities.
True question, and this is not to toot my horn, but this is just honest feedback for honest people. How much of your decision was influenced by me? And I don't mean me and like toot my horn, but I think when you find people who genuinely give a crap about your success, who genuinely want to see you win, don't freaking waste it. There's so many people in the business world, in the entrepreneur world, who have to go their whole freaking life and no one is ever rooting for them. No one is ever telling them, dude, you have paper, you know, toilet paper on your shoe. Like, no one actually is honest and transparent. And listen, I've never heard this story from your perspective. I know my perspective, and I can tell you you've left out a lot of nuggets of what I've done. But I will say I genuinely gave a crap about your success. I genuinely wanted to see you be successful. Now, again, I want to state to the cameras, I'm not asking you to toot my own horn. Just be honest with people. But how much of it, because again, you know, I get it. There's a new location opening. I made a bunch of money off the new location. How much of it is that, and how much of it is DFW, and how much of it is me, and how much of it is just opportunity in general?
So like I said earlier, when I first met you, man, no, this ain't it, right? And as, you know, we spent a couple months in Austin. I got to know you a little bit better. I actually was part of that experience where you lost one of your really close friends. And it's crazy because I had just gone through that not too long ago before that. And so I felt you, but I felt like I didn't know you enough to, you know, kind of engage
Let me
that
tell
moment.
that story. I think it's going to be important for the audience to be able to ascertain our connection and our relationship as both friends and business partners, to understand that. So, you know, he talked to you guys about how he got the call and lost a very good friend of him in a very sudden notice. So I remember, you know, again, my story's deep, and I've shared it in a couple different facets. But you know, to quick notes it all. There was a time in my life where I was at my lowest point in life. I remember I was an alcoholic, and I don't mean just an alcoholic like I drink now, but I was diagnosed as an alcoholic. I remember I checked into a mental facility for a few days to get an honest opinion, to see if I was tripping or if it was real. And I ask this all the time. I'd be asking guys, like, am I tripping? I ask my business partners, like, am I tripping? But I remember I wanted to see what it was. And it all stemmed from one very serious thing. I was in a dark place for a very long time in my life before I had attained any level of success. Very similar story, right? You know, upbringing wasn't great, and everything wasn't great, and everything that could have went wrong. And I remember there was a point where I was like, I have nothing in life to live for. And to short a very long story that I would need my own 2-hour podcast for, you know, I attempted suicide. And in that attempt, I wrote a very long letter to what at the time was, you know, the mother figure I had at that time, you know, and it was one of my good friend Daniel. His mom was incredible. She was incredible to me, and she was one of the best people I met on this earth, and she unfortunately passed away due to cardiac arrest. And I got my first tattoo. I have a tattoo on my bicep that's in kanji. It's Japanese. It says the word inevitability. And it was a reminder to me that hardship, loss, and leaving this earth is inevitable. It will always come. And I remember going through that. And in that unfortunate attempt, I prayed. It was my first time really coming to God at the highest level and praying for help. And I remember in that letter, I asked God to give me clarity. I asked him to give me help. I asked him to save me. This is a true story. I've never told the story on camera before. Well, the next morning I woke up. Just quick notes. We went to a candle lighting for her passing, and it was so windy we couldn't light a candle. So I vowed to myself I would go back 1 year later exactly and do this candle lighting. So 1 year later, I went and did this candle lighting, and man, it's tough to say this, but I remember I brought an entire bottle of Fireball whiskey, a large bottle, and I brought a picture. I didn't bring a phone. I didn't bring anything, just a picture and a bottle of Fireball whiskey. And at this time, I was young, right? So everybody drinks Fireball, right? And I remember I drunk the entire bottle sitting on the same bench in the same park that we held this candle lighting. And I was jacked, man. I was jacked, and I was crying, and I was freaking in the darkest place I've ever been since I've walked planet Earth. That night, I wrote this letter to her, basically pronouncing the things that I did wrong and telling her that I was ready to leave this earth. And I asked at the bottom of that letter for help. It was about 3 a.m. I attempted suicide, and I failed, obviously, because I'm still here. The next morning, I got a call about 7 a.m. I remember this is a true story. I can't make this up. If you're a godly man, you know, God is freaking powerful, man. He's so powerful. So 6 a.m., my alarm went off. I remember I was working at AutoZone at the time. And my alarm went off, and I was sober. 3 a.m., I was drunk. 6 a.m., I was sober. I went to work at AutoZone. 7 a.m., I get a call from this guy named Terrence, this random dude from high school. I hadn't seen since high school. I remember this line like it is tattooed in my brain. I said, hello? He said, hey, what's up, brother, man? This is Terrence. Is this Kevin? I said, yep. He said, hey, my mom told me that God told her I needed to call you. I broke down in tears crying. Immediately in the middle of AutoZone, I was crying on the floor. I remember if you're watching Eli, my store manager was like, what the frick are you doing, dude? And I was like, I don't know, man. And that day he picked me up. That day he picked me up from work, and he got my life together. He dragged me to AA 3 days a week. He allowed me to stay with him. He helped me get my life back on track. And when I got hired at LA Fitness, I think it was either before or after him, I was under that tent. Shout out Joey Kane, who told me I was a freaking marketing consultant. He was talking about his draw. I didn't know I was even supposed to be selling. I thought I was on an hourly wage to wave a sign. He had me on the freeway waving a sign, told me I was a marketing consultant. That same VP he talked about, that dude asked me why I hadn't sold anything in my first month. I looked him dead in his eyes and said, sir, I'm not in sales. He said, but you're a sales counselor. I said, no, sir, I'm a marketing consultant. So anyways, Terrence was at the frickin' tent with me waving this doggone sign for free. Long story short, this dude saved my life. This dude saved my absolute life. I would not walk this earth if it wasn't for him. And I remember the day that I got the call, very similar call. I was in Austin with Marco at the time. I think I was his boss or his manager or whatever was at the time. I was some, authority of leadership. And I was with this guy who had just moved into my apartment. It's the story he's talking about. He moved into the apartment because I lived there, and then we connected at a high level. And I remember sitting there making a steak. If you guys didn't know, I cook, and I cook well. I do this. He doesn't. And I was making a steak, and I got a call. And it was a friend of mine at the time, and he said, hey, I need to talk to you. Are you sitting down? Very similar to his story. There's a reason why we connected. And I said, nah, I'll sit down in a second. And I remember I looked at him. I said, hey, watch them steaks. I'm going to be right back. And I get the call, and it's, hey, what are you doing? I said, dude, I'm just sitting here. I'm in Austin. And he said, hey, I want to let you know Terrence passed away in a motorcycle accident. And mind you, I'm sitting here with him on the balcony making steaks. It rocked me. It rocked me as much as it rocked him. And, I'm keeping my composure because I've been doing these podcasts and I'm good on camera. But if it's tough. It's the toughest thing I've ever been through my entire life. My entire sleeve, beginning top to bottom, shoulder to wrist, is dedicated to this one individual. And to make matters worse, after hearing the most important person to ever walk planet Earth passed away, he burnt the damn steaks. I came back, and those two very expensive New York strip steaks that I paid for were fucking beef jerky, dude. We were at Buc-ee's, bro. Beef jerky. And I looked at him, and I was like, what's up, dude? And he's like, my bad. So that situation that I went through was probably my weakest point in life, but that transition, that moment, and I think this was, again, we are very godly men. He's talking about it in the story, and I've talked about it quite a bit. And if you know me, you know this. I think that moment was written well before I was ever born. You know, one of my mentors, my spiritual mentor, his name is Santiago. He's going to be on the podcast soon. He's a very successful guy. But more importantly, he's been assigned to be the leader of my Kingdom Business Leader group. And he helps me with my walk. And he told me a lot of scriptures that bring me back to understanding. And he said, Kevin, God has more thoughts of you than there are speckles of sand in the beach. And I believe my story, I believe his story, I believe what I was asked to endure and what he was asked to endure were written well before I was ever placed in this very magnificent body. Well before that. So I appreciate you acknowledging that. I appreciate you saying that story. You know, I think that's one of the reasons that we connected at such a high level when we were in Austin. It's because I knew of what happened to you, and I got to you got to firsthand be there when that happened. And the moment I got back from that funeral, I remember that night I'd left. I left and I drove to Houston, and by the grace of God, I got to see Terrence on life support. And I want to say for a moment, I want to use this platform to thank his mother, Miss Onika. I walked into the hospital, and she asked every single person, I'm talking about blood family, to get out of the room. She looked at everyone, the mother, and said, get out. Give the room to Kevin. And she knew how tough that was for me. And what she did for me, I will never be able to repay that. You know, like, she asked his cousins to get out of the room for me. And I thank you so much for that. I thank you so much for that moment. So, you know, coming back into the world, you know, I just lost the most important person on earth for me. And I got to be able to have deep conversations and relate to someone who had been through that, someone who had firsthand experienced that. That's rare. It's a rare anomaly in loss and hardship. So I appreciate you acknowledging that. I took a moment to kind of branch off to talk about that. So, you know, we connected very well, and I think that's being undertowed, but I think everyone obviously can convey that considering our current relationship status. So you get back to Houston, you know, your son is born. That pretty much changes everything, you know, and the call comes in from me, and it says, hey, come to Dallas. What's going through your head?
Round 2. Let's get it. And at the time, Connie's like, hey, we just had a kid. What are you doing? You know, again, my family. What are you doing? You just had a kid. You're leaving again? And I said, I got to do what I got to do. And, I mean, at first I was trying to keep this more on a professional level, but, I mean, Kevin here, I feel like that moment right there was basically starting point of what's been a great brotherhood between us. And I was like, I trust this guy to move me to the next level, you know. So I told Connie, I said, I'm leaving again. I'm going to go first. See, kind of test the water, see what's going to happen. And if it works out, you can join me. And so, and I think her parents, because they really took good care of her while Axel was a newborn. You know, this is tough. You know, little babies, they cry a lot. They go to the restroom a lot.
Well, let me ask you this. Did you have more confidence making this move because you had done it before already?
I would say yes, but no, because, I mean, like I said earlier, I trust God a lot. So there was a lot of prayer behind this. It wasn't just hey, cool, let's do it again.
Yeah, it wasn't a spontaneous decision.
Yeah, no, it might come across because I'm trying to keep this, as simple as possible, but, there was a lot of prayer behind this. I remember I went inside the boiler room at the LA Fitness at the time in the Marquee, and I just broke down, and I said, God, like, you got to guide me, man. Like, it's not just me anymore. It's I have a family, and I want to do the best for them. And, I mean, I had it comfortable here. I moved down, became a general manager. I was still a general manager, so nothing changed there. And so when you offered me the position here in the Dallas market, I said, all right. It took me about a day or so. I can't remember. I remember we talked on the phone a lot about it. And I said, let's do it. And so I drove up here. I remember I drove up here one time just to kind of scout it, see what the market was like. And I met a lot of great guys here, and if you guys are watching them, and I really appreciate all y'all's friendship. Y'all were very welcoming to me here in this city. And so I was like, let's do it. I'm ready. So that's when you process the transactions and all that you needed to do.
Yeah, which for a quick moment, right? This is my show. I can cuss. I fucked up. I put him in the system like 2 days before the month ended. And I can't remember who was the GM at the time. But I remember he called me. And he's like, why is Marco like listed as a GM also? And I was like, I fucked up. I fucked up. So I wish I could remember. Please don't get mad at me for not remembering. But I could not remember who it was, and I fucked up. I definitely put him in the system like 2 days too early, and that's on me.
I remember who
so
it was. Too.
Everybody, who was it?
Juan Bermudez.
Juan, yeah, man, my bad, man.
So
I'm
you
sorry.
watched this, man. It was all planned.
You know,
happened.
And here's the unfortunate part of corporate America, right? You're put in positions where you've got to make tough decisions. You've got to make tough decisions, and everybody thinks you're the bad guy, but it's like you don't understand the level of heat I'm getting. I'm getting an unlimited amount of heat to perform and to make sure my people are performing. If you're in a position I need you to win and you're not winning, listen, I feel as bad as you do, but I got to make the right move. You know, I believe that in any multi-level position. I believe head coaches in the NFL is the toughest position on earth. It's the most scrutinized and most highly doubted position. And we talk about these dudes getting fired like we're playing freaking cards. Like, that dude got fired last week. It's tough, man. Yeah. It's a lot of pressure. And I'm sorry, Juan. You just weren't doing well. Okay, so you obviously come into the role. You come into Dallas. You know, things play out. How does that work?
And I remember from the go, you were like, people cannot know we're friends. So that was mission number one. And I'm sorry to all our VPs. And you know who we're talking. You're probably going to watch it.
Shout out,
Kurt. And so that was our number one goal. We couldn't let people know that we were cool.
Yeah.
It was just strictly business.
But the thing I want to ask you, and I want to reiterate: don't let our relationship dictate your responses to these questions. Be very honest. People are watching this to learn from you. I'm the same guy every doggone episode. They're here for you. When you say, "Hey, people can't see we're friends," the thing that I think is going to convey is that we're hiding it. I want you to take a moment and acknowledge: is the friendship getting in the way, or is this just two different branches, or is business as usual?
It was to keep it more as business. I didn't really want people feeling like there was favoritism, which there wasn't, because, to be honest with you, he was probably meaner to me than he was to any other general manager, just because, in a way, I felt like you were trying to hide it too. But it was good for me because it helped me grow, and I appreciated that at the time. It was even when I was doing good, I wasn't doing good because you were finding those gaps where I can become better. And so I like the relationship that we kept. It was strictly professional at work, and when we were outside of work, it was friendship. So it was never a mix between the two. And we joked about it all the time. It was regular Kevin or VP Kevin, And he would call me, and people would be like, "Man, this dude really hates you," And I was like, "No, he wants to see me succeed." And sometimes it did like piss me off at times, because I'm like, man, what grown man is gonna let some other grown man talk to him like that, But now that I'm looking back, and I'm like, dude, this was to make me better, this was to make me successful, to be able to provide for my family and keep the role that I was in. And so we worked in different locations. Things happened. We ended up working in the same location. We opened up a facility together. Actually, the facility I moved out there to open, we ended up opening together. So it was
opened like a year and a half late, right?
Yeah, Norris and Hill, shout out. But it was a great experience, man, being able to see, because a lot of it was more manager, outside picture to, somebody that was in the facility. But being able to work, one desk to the other, it's like, man, I was able to learn a lot more stuff as far as how to be a better leader, how to be, better manager. Because I feel like I could get people to buy into the system, but my management was very, I wouldn't say weak, but I would just say I kind of try to keep a balance between a friendship and manager.
In my opinion, professional opinion, it was very lackadaisical. It was very trying to maintain the likingness as opposed to the respect.
Correct. And so I learned a lot of that from you being able to work hand in hand in one location, So that was a very, very, very great experience, I feel, even though it was probably, like a month. Mm-hmm. And so then I got re-promoted up, and we were in two different locations. And I remember I would we would chatter on the messenger, and be like, every time they sent the rankings, we were always top clubs, you know. And a lot of that came from, you know, from what I learned from you. And so, man, we were out there making good money. You know, it wasn't great money, but it was good money. You know, we had great locations, great situations for the both of us. Stayed here maybe what was it, about 4 years, and in that time was when. So before, let's rewind a little bit. This is end of 2016 when I first moved out here. That's when I proposed to Connie. I said, hey, I want a family. I want to do this right. I want to, you know what I'm saying? I want to be able to raise my boy. I want to be able to take care of you and be the man in the relationship and the family. And so she moved out here with me. We were out here for a while, and then we got married in 2018. And shout out to my best man here. At the time, I wasn't financially doing well. You know, I still remember we tried to do a small wedding. It wasn't going to be a big wedding. We had planned a venue at here over in Houston, and we were like, we don't have the stability with the money, you know. So I said, let's do something small, get a little small place, and we'll just do that just for the respect out of our parents, because we can just go get a license and say, hey, we're married, good life, you know. Yeah. This was more about making it public that, hey, we're married, for the people that were close to us. So we weren't planning a big wedding at all. This was supposed to be max, probably 100 people, probably less, I don't remember. And more people showed up. And so I was like, oh, man. And I remember I was like, I have to feed them. I can't be rude. So we told the lady at the venue, and I said, hey, we need to order more food for them. And then I still remember all the money that we got from the wedding, and I appreciate everybody that was able to gift us any money. That money I used to pay for the food. So we kept $0 out of that wedding.
Not only did you not keep money, it did never even touch your hands.
Correct. It just went straight back to the...
So let me ask you this, and I appreciate you being vulnerable to acknowledge this publicly. Who all knew that level of hardship?
Nobody. I probably think it was just you and Connie.
First off, let me say this, because I've never got the opportunity to say this out loud to the public, not even in like a 2-man, 3-man group. So I'm going to use this platform to say it, because it's going to be engraved forever in YouTube. This dude, listen, Connie had about 8 bridesmaids. Beautiful, beautiful setup. Awesome setup. They had a bridesmaid event. They had a night before where I got some awesome photos where I was cutting watermelon. So I decided to ask, hey, you know, she's got about 8 bridesmaids. How many groomsmen are you going to have? He said, you and Axel. Axel at the time was how old? 2?
He had just turned 2, yeah.
Okay. Axel was 2. And I said, you haven't even asked me to be your best man yet. This is about 2 days before the wedding. He was like, I thought you knew.
It's automatic.
I thought you knew. So then, true story. This is a true story. You can look all this up. All these photos are on Facebook. True story. The venue, the wedding happens. I am the only groomsman. Me and only me. And she's got 8 bridesmaids. I remember when the ceremony started, right? Her 8 bridesmaids go sit down in the first row. And I start to walk away, too, because they're walking away. And his mom looks at me and she says, Mijo, stay up there. So this entire wedding went down between the 3 of us. I remember there was about 6 people in that wedding who asked me, did you marry them too? I'm like, I guess.
No, it's going to be a great memory, absolutely. So, I mean, the wedding happened, and this is 2018. 2019 happened. No, I'm sorry. This is summer of 2018. They moved me to a new location, and Connie's like, hey, we should have another kid. And I said, let's go for it, because I like that gap that I had with my sister, the 1.5 years. Mm-hmm. It was great because, man, even to this day, people, they're like, how are you guys so close? Like, they'll be like, I mean, I'm cool with my brother and sister, but we're not close like y'all, you know. It's, you guys are like this, you know. Yeah. And I was like, I guess it was the age gap and the situation that happened in our life where we actually had to basically raise each other because my mom was always working. And so we became really close. And so we were like, okay, let's try for another baby. And so, of course, we tried. And I remember she surprised me about the pregnancy one day. And we're like, cool, we're going to have another kid. It's awesome. We're excited. And so we're like, okay, I feel like I've done my time here in DFW. It's time for me to go back. And at this time, and I was kind of checking out of LA Fitness, the company we're working for, just the system and all that, you know. It just, I felt like I was just do my time there. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, I asked for another transfer, and I appreciated Kurt because you didn't have to do that, and you transferred me back. And I was like, I'm going to have my baby in Houston. And he even asked me, he's like, hey, what club do you want to go to? Well, I'll put you there. And I remember I said, put me in this location. He went ahead and processed it. And he told me this is the last time we're doing this because, like, dude, you're jumping around from city to city all the time. Like, come on, man, you got to settle down. And I said, hey, man, I'm just making moves. I'm trying to figure it out as I go. So I do appreciate it for what you did. And I remember I was at that location, and Connie went to to her doctor just to go do some tests, you know.
Yeah.
Because I had to work that day. And so she FaceTimed me when she got there, and, you know, they were doing the ultrasounds. And the doctor kept saying their heart are great. No, she kept saying both hearts are great. So Connie's thinking, like, my heart and the baby's, you know, we good. And then she's like, nah, y'all got twins. And but when I tell you I was stressing, because when I left here to Houston, I was check to check, basically. You know, I was making enough. I was making good money, but you know, I got a family now. I got, you know, multiple people to feed and bills and all that stuff. I was working check to check. I didn't have no savings. It was just what I had. And so I was like, oh man, I'm gonna have 3 kids. You know, the first one is like, oh man, I'm gonna be a dad. You know, you feeling good.
Yeah.
And the second one, they're like, oh, he's gonna have a little sibling. You know, it's awesome. But twins were like, oh man. And I remembered I got twins in my family. And because that's another thing about my childhood. I didn't really know my family like that. You know, a lot of them are still in Guatemala. I have some family in LA. But I have cousins that we call cousins, but they're not really blood cousins. They're more of, you know, we grew up together. My parents, whatever, you know. So I didn't really know my family like this. I don't really know my ancestry, you know, background and all. But my mom told me, like, your great grandma's a twin. So I was like, well, I guess that's where it came from. It skips a couple generations, right? And I was like, oh man. And then things went down at LA Fitness. For whatever reason, we had to part ways. And I remember too, I was like, I'm getting ready to have a kid in 3 months, twins.
So time out. So when the tenure with LA Fitness ended, she's pregnant with the twins at the time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So where's your emotional state at that time?
I'm stressing. I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm going to have 3 kids, and I was barely making means meet with the 1 kid, you know? Mm-hmm. And so we were like, okay, we got to go move. We're moving back to Houston. We were already here. And we ended up moving in with my sister and her husband, which we're very grateful for. I mean, we can't thank you enough for what you guys did for us. And she had just had her little boy too. So the agreement was we'll watch your kid, we'll buy groceries, and we can stay with you guys, right? And so that's what happened. We ended up living in that one home. And that's when me and LA Fitness parted ways. So I was unemployed. I had maybe 2 weeks worth of money to be able to keep going, you know? Because at the time my truck note was probably, what was it, $800? And I was paying Connie's car as well and other stuff. And so I was like, this would last me.
So it's not necessarily that the income was super low, but the expenses were super high.
Correct.
Okay. And
so around that time when I was unemployed, I was like, okay, I'm going down to my last dollar. And so I was trying to figure out again. I started back at, I wouldn't say zero because I had a lot of experience now, but it's like, what am I going to do now?
Square one. Correct. Not necessarily zero, but square one.
It's like, we're starting back over here. I've done these, like we said back, we're trying to figure out our way, right? And I was like, in 3 months, I'm going to have twins. And I have this amount of money. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to make it stretch as much as I can. And so I remember I was even thinking about starting a land. This is how the hustle's in me. I'm trying to figure out where my next dollar's going to come from, right? Mm-hmm. I was talking to friends about, hey, man, let's do landscaping this. And then, of course, you got your naysayers, you know, like, oh, no, that's stupid. You're not going to make any money. So I'm like, all right, so that dream is dead. I even went down to bird watching when you refer people to dealerships. That didn't work out, so I was like, all right, this ain't it. And so my sister works for Lennar, and she's like, hey, you should apply. I'm like, I ain't never sold a home in my life. Gym membership and a house, completely different.
Way different.
It's a whole different process. It's not just, trying to get somebody to get something, $30 a month, This is a purchase, a big purchase, which is, for a lot of people, it's probably one of their biggest purchases of their lives. I was like,
well, the vast majority of people on the planet, their home is their highest valued asset on planet Earth.
Correct.
It's the vast majority of people that if they had to look at all of their assets, their material assets, and put a number to them, which you could find your worth, you could find the evaluation of anything, the evaluation of your car, the evaluation of your home. But typically, the most expensive asset that they own is their home.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so your sister basically says, hey, listen, I'm working for a builder. I think you should get on. Now, is she in sales?
No, she was at the time. She was in sales, but she was the sales assistant, so she was in charge of making sure the systems were good, sending out price sheets, just stuff like that.
Administration.
Correct.
Okay, and she's telling you to get into the company? She's telling you to get into what she's doing?
No, get it in the company, sales.
Just in general? Oh, she's telling you to sell?
No, she's telling me, go straight to sales. She's like, these guys make crazy money. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I know a lot of realtor friends that are, barely making it by, and it's just like, I mean, I can try it. And then so she's like, well, they're going to have.
Here we go. Hold on. Time out. Here we go, man. This is the meat and potatoes of what we've all been waiting for, right? How the heck did you do well and make dumb money selling homes? This is what we've been waiting for. Okay, so she tells you get into the industry. You're trying to get into the sales position. How do you get the job? That's the first question.
So this is how it goes. Prior to this, my sister tried to get me years before I left to Fort Worth. She didn't want me to leave again. So she's like, hey, I'm gonna ask again, see if they can put an interview for you. And I said, okay, cool. And then at the time, the VP of sales, he was like, no, he has no experience. We only hire people with experience. So that's when I moved to DFW. I was like, okay, cool. And then 2019, they started a training program at Lennar where they were kind of trying to test the water, see how it goes for people that don't have experience. And so she's like, well, the job fair is in April. We're talking March right now. Mm-hmm. I was like, wow, still a month away. And I remember I was out of money 100%, right? And so I was backed up, man. I was terrified because I didn't have no way to pay my truck. And I was like, I don't want to have a repossession. My credit's going to go to the tank. It's going to suck, right? And so I was like, okay, cool. I could wait a month. And so I asked my mom to let me borrow some money. And she did, and I thank you for that as well, because, I felt like I was on top of the world before that, and then everything just crashed down on me. And she let me borrow some money, and just to kind of get by. And I remember my sister told me too. She was like, "Hey, there's a guy that used to work for us that works at a different builder. He's like, he's looking for somebody. You can go interview, just kind of get your feet in the water, see what it's like." So I went to interview with him. I did the first interview with him, and then a couple days later, his VP called me in for an interview. It went well, but the way the structure was for that specific company was we don't pay you anything until you close a home. Mm-hmm.
Which can take how long?
Depending on construction, 5 to 8 months.
Okay.
So I wasn't going to see a check for 5 to 8 months.
And you couldn't afford that.
I was like, I can't do this. And I told the guy, I was like, I'm going to be honest with you, man. He was like, I like you. I feel like you can do well in this business if we teach you right. But I was like, I just can't do it, man. I'm sorry.
So that doesn't work out. You end up interviewing with Lennar, right?
So then in April, that's when the job fair happened. And I remember, man, my heart was I was sweating bullets just like I was earlier. I was nervous. I showed up. I was in my slacks, button-up shirt. I show up. It's probably just under 100 people there. It was a big, huge conference room. And everybody's suited, booted, briefcases, everything. And I'm sitting there like, dude, all these guys look like they've been doing this for years. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting there like, my little notebook, And I was like, okay, well, I'm still in it. Because I remember my sister was the one doing the sign-in sheets. Mm-hmm. And when she saw me, her eyes brightened up. She was all smiling. She's like, I hope you get your job. I hope you get the job. And I was just like, I told her, I whispered, I'm like, look at all these people. I'm not getting the job. Yeah. But I'm going to still do the interview just out of respect because I know you referred me. So then I was sitting there. People were getting called. They had like a ticket number. They're like, this person come up, this person come up. And finally, they called my name, and I went and sat in the office, and we were just talking. And I told him my experience with LA Fitness. I told him my background, where I came from, where my situation was, where I was getting ready to have twins, and I have my little boy, my wife. And he's like, I'm actually looking for people that are hungry like you. Like this business can really work for somebody that doesn't know anything about it, because I can literally mold you and teach you.
To what I want you to be.
To what? Because a lot of people with experience, they'll come in and they're stubborn in their ways.
They think they know what they're doing.
Correct. So he was like, I like you. I like your ambition. You know, he asked me a lot of questions, and I felt like it went well. It was a good interview. It was probably one of the better interviews I've ever been in. And at the end, he was like, you have any questions for me? And, you know, I asked him just a couple, questions about the actual job. And then at the end, after all that he answered, he was like, do you have any other questions for me? And I said, no, sir, this was great. And he's like, Marco, this is the part where you asked me for the job. And I said, may I have the job? And he said, absolutely. And so I was like, bro, when I tell you I started tearing, I was in my low, man. And I still have the screenshot to this day where I had $1.87. Technically, I had $11.87. I put $10 in gas to go to the interview. I was at my lowest ever. And I'm grateful for you, Phil, for giving me the opportunity. And so he was like, training program starts a month from now. So I was like, oh, man, no more checks. Still no checks. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, okay, I can do this. And he's like, in the training program, you're going to get paid hourly, but it wasn't a lot, it was because you're in training. So the training program was 3 months, and I did very well. It was 8 of us. And right out the bat, once we because you had to take a test, graduate, do the course through Lennar. Mm-hmm. And so I remember I passed the test, did the whole training thing, and they had put me in a community that was probably about, because that's the thing with builders, you don't just freelance like a realtor.
So time out. So the thing I'm going to stop and announce before we get into it, when we talk about real estate, right? Real estate is going to be some of the best ways to invest your money outside of stocks, index funding. You could try the crypto game, which I'm doing, but it's high risk, high reward. But the real estate game is always going to be something you can make a ton of money in. But there's so many ways to play the game, right? If I looked at the game of basketball, right? You could decide you want to be a basketball player, and you can go, hey, look, I'm going to be a shooter. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to master shooting. And I'm going to stand there in the corner, 3-and-D. Or you could go, hey, look, I'm going to drive the ball. Or I'm going to be a dunker. Or I'm going to be a big man. Or I'm going to be a defensive player. Or whatever your niche is in the game. Real estate is one of the largest games that has some of the highest yields in turnarounds in terms of income. But there's many ways you could approach the game. Your experience, and the thing that we're going to end up talking about, is the approach of working for a builder. Not necessarily independent or through a broker or selling someone's home, but working for a builder, which you've done very well. This is the way of the game we're going to be talking about. So coming into it, how afraid are you of just being in real estate from hearing the rumors of all these independent realtors who aren't doing very well?
So this is pre the market that we're in right now. Mm-hmm. Of course, right now.
The market right now is insane.
It's crazy. Yeah, everybody's trying to get a home. A lot of people are moving to Texas from California, Oregon, Chicago, New York, states like that, right? And so
pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID.
But the question I have for you is, how scared are you coming into the real estate game knowing how many people are not making it?
So it's definitely a lot harder than the sales job that I had before. Not just because it was memberships, just because of everything you need to learn as far as like, this is what you can say, this is what you cannot say, because all this can be used against you. You got to learn the contracts, you got to learn how the home process building is, how the closing, all that stuff. You got to learn all that. So you you do a lot of that in training. And it was about a 3-month program. So the first couple weeks you're at corporate office, you're just kind of learning the logistics of it. And then for 2 months they have you shadow somebody where you're not making any commissions, but you're watching somebody sell.
Just kind of shadowing, yeah.
Yeah, and if they're busy, you can be like a host to the next client that's coming in, you know. It's like
kind of liaison, yeah.
Correct. So I took it as, this is how I can get my feet in the water. And I told the guy that I was training with, I was like, let me take lead in a couple of these. You know, if you see me say something wrong, correct me. And so,
but at that time, he's still getting commission.
He like, so let's say for instance, if I sold a home, he'd get commission.
Yeah.
I don't.
But you want to. The reality is, you're coming into this saying, "Listen, I'm going to learn this game and I'm going to do well at it. So let me get my reps in. Let me, give me a shot. Let me kind of use your experience and hey, let me play and see if I mess up."
Yeah, because a lot of people, they'll just sit back and kind of watch him and be like, I could have done this, I could have done that. I was more of, let me do it, and if I mess up, let me know. And let me know right there and then, you know what I'm saying? So I don't say something that can come against you or me, you know, or the company.
Of course.
And so he was like, absolutely, go ahead. And so he would let me take lead. And
how confident are you at this point?
I mean, at first I was a bit nervous, but then once you get a couple reps in, you're like, oh, you know, you start getting a little bit more excited. The extrovert in me is like, okay, I can do this, you know. It was more nerving as far as like the actual me saying something that I'm not supposed to say or saying incorrect information and stuff like that, you know. That's what was nervous about it.
So how long does it take until you get to a point where you're like, I've got this. I'm doing well. I'm ready to go.
My 3rd month in training.
But you already stated that the training program itself was 3 months.
Yes.
So it's literally out of training. You're like, yo, I got this.
I'm ready. Yeah. Well, it's the approach that I took for it is what I'm trying to say.
So you kind of went into it with intent that I'm going to figure this thing out.
Yeah. Like I don't have time to waste. Like I told you, man, I had no money to kind of chill on and be like, I can take this slow. No, I'm talking about I need to hit this running.
What year are we in at this point?
This is 2019.
Okay. So then you get out of training. You know, how does it play out? You killing the game off the bat? You have to take some time to kind of graduate? What's the dealio?
So this is what happened. When I first graduated, they had first sent me to a community out in Katy, which is a little bit over an hour away from where I lived. My manager at the time had no idea, but they were like, this is the only opening I have. And this is why I say, man, God works in great ways. Because the first day that I was supposed to show up, a guy that was in another community that was a little bit closer to me decided to part ways from the company. So they're like, hey, and so I called my manager and I said, hey, there's a closer community for me. And he was like, you don't want to go there, man. This is bad. This is where people go to either quit or get fired. You know, it's a bad community. Like it's a revolving door as far as consultants that go in there.
Okay.
And so I was like, man, let me take it. I'll go. And so I remember when I got there, man, there was 27 completed homes in that community. And I mean, that's bad. You know, they're basically built 3 to 4 a month.
27 completed homes that had not yet been sold.
Correct.
Okay. That's what we needed to hear. So there's 27 vacant homes that can be sold but have yet to be sold.
Correct.
Okay.
And so there was
if we were talking about the industry, like your current endeavor in Wood Forest, how many homes, like again, we're skipping a little bit, but how many homes right now in Wood Forest do you have that are built and not yet sold?
0.
Okay, well that gives you guys perspective.
Yeah, so
there's 27 opportunities to sell these homes.
Yeah, and the community was in Tomball. It's called Rose Hill Reserve. It was a bad community for every builder in there. It wasn't just for Lennar, because Lennar actually purchased another builder called Cal Atlantic. And that was their community at the time. So we just kind of grandfathered into it.
And just kind of started selling.
And so they were like, all right, we need to get these homes out.
Okay.
You know?
So coming into the game, right? You're in the game. You show up. You're like, yo, I'm here. I took this job. How difficult and how different is it from what you were doing before? Because here's what I firmly believe. I believe sales is sales. I believe your product requires product knowledge. Don't try and go sell something if you don't have product knowledge, period, point blank. But sales is sales. If I can sell cookies, I can sell homes, I can sell cars, I can sell knives, I can sell cats. You can sell it. You need product knowledge to be able to back it up, and you need process understanding. Absolutely. I can't randomly tomorrow walk into a car lot and confident and be like, I'm going to be your best salesperson. I just can't. I don't know your process. I don't have product knowledge. So my question to you is, getting into this game, you've been in sales for a good amount of your life. You've had level of success. You're now trying to sell homes. How much of it is and again, you also went through a 3-month training program. So for those of you guys who are looking at real estate, I know there's a lot of different ways to play it. The builder route is probably the least looked at, but you got a guy here making dumb money at it, and he hadn't got to that because he spent 3 hours talking about his story, which I appreciate.
Sorry.
No, you're good. But you got a guy making dumb money doing it. The question I have for you is, coming into it, how intimidating is it? Or is it just kind of, okay, I got this?
It's very intimidating, just because, like I said, this isn't just something like you're selling some. This is a big purchase for a lot of people, so it's a big decision. It's not just something that you can pressure somebody into doing.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of backing behind it.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got to Rose Hill, I saw an opportunity. I saw a great opportunity. I was like, hey, this is quick money, because in this industry, you don't get paid until they receive keys.
Okay.
So let's say, for instance, somebody comes in and...
Let's say I walked in today. I said, hey, Marco, I want to buy a house.
So, for example, if you came in and you saw a home site, or some other people know it as a lot.
Mm-hmm. Just a plot of grass.
Correct.
And I said, hey, I want to buy this lot, and I want to build that house that you guys have on the website.
Yes. So I can sell you that. I can put you under contract.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't get paid when I write that contract. I get paid when you close.
And my closing is after it's built.
After it's built.
So let's use that scenario for example for those of you guys who don't understand. Or some of you guys who may want to get into the real estate game, and maybe a builder's a great route. I see a plot. I see this patch of grass, and I go, Marco, I want to buy that. I like that corner lot. My kids are going to play right there, and I want to build the model that you guys have online called whatever, right? And I go, here's my money. How long does it take to build that?
So the process on that is, of course, finding the lot, the home.
I got the lot. We found the lot. You and I found the lot. And I give you the money. How long does it take to build it?
5 months.
5 months. So I give you the money today, for example, just in this hypothetical scenario, and 5 months later it's built, and then I get the keys. That's when you get paid?
Yeah. So the first monies that we take is the earnest money, which is just a percentage of whatever the home is. And so we build a home. When you close, every company is going to be different.
Of course.
Lennar,
of course,
they pay you the month after because they got to make sure everything's good, funds clear.
Got to make sure my check clears, right?
Correct.
So let me ask you this, right? In that scenario that we're referring to, let's say hypothetically, earnest money is, again, I want you to remember, right? Now we're in a game of something that took you X amount of months and years to learn. And people don't know this, including myself. I have no idea what the heck earnest money is. What the hell is earnest money?
It's the money that you put down to reserve a home.
How much is that? What percentage?
$5,000.
It's always $5,000?
Depending on the collection. So Lennar does everything by collection. So like you have your entry level homes, you have more in the 300s, 400s, and we got our luxury line like the Village Builder product, where those are probably going to take about $30,000 earnest money.
Okay, time out. Listen. I love this part because this is the part when I can start rapid firing guys. Okay, here's the thing. I don't know what the hell you're talking about, and I want to excuse my language, but this is my show. I don't know what you're talking about, dude. I want to buy a house. I come to you, okay? The house is listed at, let's say, hypothetically, $300,000, for example.
Yes.
Okay. Earnest money. Is that a deposit?
It's a deposit,
okay,
yes.
It's a deposit.
Yes.
It's a deposit of a preset amount that you guys set.
Correct.
Okay, so let's say in this scenario it's $5,000. Mm-hmm. I give you $5,000, and now you start construction, is what you're saying.
Correct.
So before I gave you that $5,000, you weren't going to build it.
Correct.
So the $5,000 is technically what it takes to build it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now you've built it. Question I have: how much money do I physically need to have to buy a house?
So it all depends on the type of loan that you're doing. You can do an FHA loan, conventional loan, or VA loan if you're military.
Okay, so FH loan. What's best for me? Let's say I'm out there, I'm in the marketplace, I'm making good money, I've got my business, I got things going on, but I'm not military. Let's say that, for example. What's my best route? How do I know my best route? Are you going to tell me my best route?
It's going to be based on your credit score.
Okay.
So if you're under 700, FHA is always going to be great.
Why?
It's a government loan and minimal down payment. It's only 3.5% down.
3.5% of the entire cost of the project.
Of the loan, correct.
Of the loan.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, it's pretty low.
Yeah, so most first-time buyers, they'll go the FHA route. If you're more, let's say your credit is above 700 points, then conventional is going to be better because conventional rewards you based on your credit. So you get incentivized, you get the better interest rates and so on.
So what would I need down for that?
5 to 10%.
So true story, right? And I believe, again, keep in mind, you're the first person we've had who've talked homes. I believed up until this episode that you needed, you hear the rumors, right? You need 10, you need 20% down, right? That's what everybody's saying to everybody. So you're telling me in new construction, I could go in there with, on average, 5%?
Yeah.
5% and I can get a house.
Absolutely.
And if I've got relatively decent credit, let's say I've got a low 700, which is what you're talking about.
3.5%.
3.5% of the entire loan.
Correct.
Now, was that like that before COVID, or is that?
That's always been a thing, yeah.
Always been a thing.
Yeah, and that's, like you said, there's a lot of, people talk and all that, and I get that a lot. People come in, they're like, oh, I don't have 20%. I'm like, you don't need 20%. 20% is really only going to buy down your purchase mortgage insurance, which is about, on average, $200. But you don't need to put 20% down.
You only need, on average, 3.5 to 5%.
Correct.
But that's not common knowledge in the marketplace, huh? So how many people do you really come across who didn't know that?
I want to say a little bit over half.
Wow. Okay. So I come into it, I'm like, hey, look, I want to build a house. I like your area. I want to get into this game. And, I mean, to me, that's a shocking revelation that you don't need that much money down. So talk to me about interest, right? Let's say I decided I wanted to buy a $300,000 house. I put 5% down, for example. Which ultimately is what, $15,000? So I put down $15,000 of this 3% home. What's my interest look like on average?
Yeah, so interest, of course, is going to be based on your credit score. But right now, in the climate that we're in the real estate market, man, I've seen people go as low as, the lowest interest rate that I saw was 1.99, and I've seen as high as 3.75. Now, of course,
what's the highest you've seen?
Well, right now the interest rates have been so low because of the whole COVID situation.
Yeah, all right, I'm going to get into that in just a second, but let's talk right now, current climate. What's the highest you've seen?
3.75.
Which is ridiculously low.
Yes. Years ago, man, I remember people were grateful that they got a 6%.
Time out. You're telling me right now the highest interest rate you're coming across is under 4%.
Yes.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, right now buying a home, it's never been this easy.
Let me ask you. Let me entertain all of you guys watching for one moment. I don't care if you're watching it this year, next year, 20 years from now. How much interest do you pay on your credit card? That's the first question I want you to ask yourself. The second question I want you to ask yourself is, what is your credit limit? Is your credit limit 500, 1,500, 10,000, 20,000? The vast majority of people, right? I was looking at an article, and I love information. I'm an information fiend. I was looking at an article, and they were declaring. Now, these are a little bit outdated statistics because it was based on 2020 poll before the world went upside down. But a 2020 poll stated that the average credit limit for the average American living in the world, 2020, was roughly $30,000. Now, keep in mind, you're talking about some guys who have $100,000 spending limits. You're talking about some black card guys who have no spending limits. And then you balance out and average out the guys who also have $200 spending limits because they've jacked their credit in 500 and thousands. That's not high. That's not high enough to buy a car nor a house. And quite frankly, the average interest rate is roughly 7.75%, which is relatively normal on a day-to-day spending credit card. You're telling me right now in our current climate, I can buy a home and only, put down, let's say, 5%, and also only pay interest sub 5%.
Absolutely.
That's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
So the question I have for you is, you guys in the marketplace, what's your feelings on that? You think that's going to stay? You think that's going to change?
So it's going to start creeping up. I've been looking at some articles from the Federal Reserve that they're saying that it's going to raise about 0.75% by summertime. So we're probably going to be just a little bit
by
over.
summertime of this year.
Correct.
And right now it's currently February.
Correct. So June, July, they're saying that we should be over a little, like around 4.5%.
Which is still relatively low.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk pre-COVID. What was normal?
4.5%.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit of a different game.
Yeah.
Okay, so give me some reasons as to, let's say hypothetically, I'm looking for a career change. And I want to, I've heard about the real estate, and I've heard about houses, and I think it's a reputable industry because you can sell houses. Why would I want to work for a home builder and not want to just sell my buddy's house?
So there's pros and cons to everything. When you work for a builder, you're on a schedule. You're a W-2 worker. versus the 1099, which real estate agents are. Real estate agent, you can freelance. You work your own schedule. Whenever you have time, you can do it. With a builder, you're there 5 days a week. You're off 2 days, but you're there 5 days a week. Mm-hmm. You give up your weekends because that's typically our busiest times of the week. As a real estate agent, you really just work whenever you have a client or you're listing a home or you have somebody that's looking to buy a home.
When things are coming up.
Correct. So you'll have your pros and cons on both sides as far as even in income-wise. As a real estate agent, you're licensed through the state of Texas. So you make a higher percentage in commissions, but you're constantly looking for business. Mm-hmm. When you're working for a builder, and I mean, I take this a different approach because of the background that I have with LA Fitness. Mm-hmm. I'm looking for my business, and that's why I've been doing so well. But business comes to you, just calling a spade,
I'm glad you brought that up. So let's talk about your margin of success in the industry, right? Because there's a lot of guys doing what you do, but not a lot of guys are doing relatively well or making the type of money that you're making. Let's first, before we even dive into level of success, talk about your accreditation. 2021, you bought your house?
Yes, to last year, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so last year you bought your house. How much was your house worth?
$380 at the time.
You bought a $380,000 home. And since then, I'm only stating this not in a bragging right, but to give you guys accreditation towards his accolades. Since then, you've also bought your wife
I bought her a new car, Ford Expedition.
Brand new.
I paid off my truck, which was the one that I was afraid of getting repoed.
So you went from, hey, I don't know if I can pay the car note to, I just paid for it.
Yeah.
And it's a very nice truck. I think it's a Lariat
F-150. I put a lift kit on it. So I was able to do little stuff like that. I was able to, you kind of got me in the world of motorcycles, so I've enjoyed it. I had to get rid of the first one that I got because of my financial situation. But now that things are gotten better for me, I was able to go out and buy a motorcycle cash, just
a nice motorcycle that I talked you into.
And so, and it's always been a goal of mine to buy a Corvette. That was my childhood dream car. And I remember because my mom used to work for a guy named Mr. Monty. He was one of the part owners of Frostbank. And she cleaned his house. And I remember it was 9/11, 2001, 9/11. Mm-hmm. We went to his house because my school was near downtown Houston. And so he was in River Oaks, which is not too far from there. So we went to his house, and he had just gotten it. Was a Z06 C5 Corvette. It was a silver, and I saw it in the garage, and I was like, I want that car. I was like,
because it was a beacon of success at that time.
I mean, the guy was a multimillionaire. Like, dude, he could have bought a couple Lamborghinis if he wanted, but he had a Corvette in his garage. It's the American dream or whatever. Or call it a midlife crisis or whatever you want to call it. But to me, I was looking at a car that was super cool. I was like, one day I'm gonna have one of these cars.
Yeah.
And I remember I told my mom too. I was like, I want one of those cars, and she's like, work for it, and you will one day. And to start off this year, I was able to go buy in a Corvette.
Nice.
So
nice. Still haven't tinted the windows. Nice.
It's coming, but it's a definitely an accomplishment.
How does that feel, right? Coming from your story that you got the opportunity to explain to us, right? Coming from young and, hey, listen, my life wasn't great and I had to make ends meet, and I respect my mom for what we went through, to climbing up the ladder and trying to make ends meet and trying to find the next opportunity, to reaching a level of success that obviously, didn't work out well, and we kind of came back down a couple notches, and then getting back up into the real estate game that's helped you climb up, and now you're able to, in 2021, really make some serious strides, right? You bought a $400,000 home. You bought your beautiful wife, who now full-time runs, the three kiddos in the house, and she's also like TikTok famous, right? And she's got a brand new Expedition, and then now you've paid off your truck, and now you bought a Corvette, and life is good. How does that feel?
I feel like the down that I had in my life made me appreciate the ups that I'm having right now a lot more than if it would have just happened. I got a job selling homes, cool. Now I'm like, this really opened another opportunity in my life for the betterment of my children, for my wife, for myself, and people around me that I'm able to bless with that, Because now, man, I've made it a hobby of, just texting some random friend that I haven't seen in a while. I'll be like, hey, you want to go grab dinner? And we'll go hit a Fogo de Chao or some other steakhouse, stuff like that I wouldn't have been able to do, a couple of years ago. Now It's about how can I give back, and it's because of that situation that I was able to appreciate more why I have what I have,
Yeah. So those lows, those necessary lows, those losses that were critical to your success are appreciated at a higher level because now it allows you to really respect the positive, the gains, the wins, which I think is such an awesome thing to be able to state is those losses are necessary, right?
Absolutely. Like a lot of people dismiss it or they don't take pride in it because it was a low time in their life. But I feel like those times are the ones that really mold you into getting to the next level that you need to be in life.
I'm a firm believer of that, and I'm glad you said it. Listen, here's the reality. You're not going to be able to do well in anything in life if you have not experienced what it takes to grow. And growth doesn't come in good stations. If everything goes right, you will never gain the experience it takes to play at a high level. You have to lose. You have to fail. You have to mess up. You have to go, dude, I think my lights are going to get turned off. You have to feel that feeling of everything went wrong. So that way, whenever that opportunity comes, you go, I'm not going to fuck this up, man. I'm going to run through a brick wall to make this happen.
Absolutely.
100%. So talk to me about, again, you get into the real estate game, you're making money, you're selling homes, which you've done a great job at. You've separated yourself in the marketplace. How does the idea of the business that we now share, Royal Renovations, how does that come into play? Where does that come from?
So being in the business, I was able to network a lot with realtors and, other builders. And I saw there's a gap in the market for, stuff that you can do as a general contractor. And I was like, hey, man, why settle with one income when you can have multiple streams of income? Because what happened to me before was I was, just on that one income.
You were dependent on it.
That's it.
And then when it closed shop.
It's like I'm sitting there like, whoa, okay, I don't know what to do now. So my goal starting last year was like, I need to start more streams of income, and I see people like you. I have other friends that I'm like, dude, like you guys are, y'all not putting your eggs in one basket. You're looking for multiple, stuff. Now, of course, you don't want to be, jumping around from one side to the other. You want to be able to manage one, be great at something and then start something, be great at that. And then that way everything is,
before you continue the story, I want to make this very clear because I appreciate you saying that. Listen, if you ain't good at what you do now, don't try something else. Like, you got to master what you're doing before you ever try anything else. I was having a conversation with my business partners of Design Roofing, and we were chatting about, this endeavor. And the reality is, one of my business partners, his name is Anthony, and he also has a real estate company where he buys and flips homes. And we were having a conversation about that, and I remember we had a discussion, and he was like, listen, when I told you I was going to come on, I told you I was going to give you everything I got. I was going to perform at the highest level. I wasn't going to give you half-assed because I've got another thing. This is the reality. You want to have multiple streams of revenue? Great. Make sure that you give every single one of them 100%. If you sign up for another opportunity, that means you got to give another 100%. You don't go 50-50. You give 100% and another 100%. And that means when the day is done, you got to be willing to give 200% of what you have to offer. And that's critical. You cannot go 50-50. Otherwise, you're going to have problems in both ends.
Correct. And so, and with that, I mean, like you said, you can't do 50 and 50. There's going to come a lot of sacrifice behind that. Now I'm still giving my 100% to Lennar, but I'm also doing 100% to when my off days, when I'm not working, I'm all in at Royal, It's just because I want to be able to succeed on both sides, So
the question I have for you, right, because, let me sum notes and quick notes everything for you guys. Marco sees a gap in the marketplace, right? He sees things that builders just don't do. It's not necessarily anything outside of that. It's just like they don't do this. They don't build this. We can't put this in homes. And there was a point where he calls me and he says, hey, listen, my builder can't build this. How possible is it for us to do this? How possible is it for us to build a gazebo? We don't build gazebos. Oh, yeah, hey, listen, it's not that difficult. It's not that convoluted. And I say that in a level of ease because I have this experience, right? And I think your experience allows you to build a level of confidence that allows you to then in turn have simplicity in what you do. But it's never that easy from the beginning. So that stems into what we created to be a remodeling company, a company that we utilize to find, an avenue to create and attack and approach what builders are not willing to offer. And I think one of the biggest things that's been a blessing for us and a curse for a lot of people is due to the marketplace being so freaking hot, right? And I think we could talk about it, but everyone knows it. The real estate market has never been this hot in life, right? Things are going 20,000, 30,000 over asking without even taking a tour, right? And I also believe it's very relevant to COVID. Here's the thing, man. COVID has put people in a position to make tough decisions. I'm not going to say anyone's right or wrong, but the governor of California and governor of New York have basically said, we're just going to shut down entirely. And people don't want to live like that. It's been 2 years, man. People are tired of living like that. So people have been leaving California like there's a fire, which weird enough, there has been a pretty, great fire.
Yeah, literally.
But people are leaving. They're like, we got to get out of here. So people are coming to Texas, and they're willing to pay well over asking price because of what they're conditioned to pay in California. So these homes are getting built, but unfortunately, because of how hot the market is, builders are starting to build what's called express homes. And these homes are basically pop them up, 4 walls, plaster, paint, sell them. I was talking to one of my homeowners who works with us, Design Roofing, and, she was talking to us because she needed a roof replacement, and she was talking about how the builder, who is not Lennar, but I won't announce, but it starts with DR and it ends with Horton, they didn't even put a freaking outlet under her sink. She had a garbage disposal built into the sink, but there was no electrical outlet. She was like, yo, how are you going to give me a garbage disposal, but you don't give me anything to plug it into? And they told her, you bought an express home.
Wow.
It's crazy, right? And as crazy and as crappy as it may be, this is the market we are in. And I think, when I got the call, he's like, hey, look, man, there's so many things these builders aren't doing, and I think I have an opportunity to do it, and I want to do it right, and I want to do it legit, and I want to do things right. That opened this avenue that we decided, mutually. Keep in mind, he talked to a story earlier in LA Fitness, how we've connected on such a high level. It was like, hey, we could fill some gaps. We could really make things happen. The question I have for you now, how scary was it to become a business owner?
I mean, when you see it from the outside, it doesn't seem as hard. Especially you being a business owner ahead of what this was. It doesn't look like there's a lot of motion behind it. It's just, okay, hire people, teach them what to do, let's go, But there's a lot of stuff in backstage that you don't know until you actually become an owner. And that's why I'm very grateful for you, because this is stuff, like, I got the hustle, I can sell, I can, find projects, I can do all that. But the other side of it, the back side of it is like, yo, this is harder than this, and I give him crap all the time. Like, bro, like, I'm doing all the heavy hitting, but man, once you actually see what you have to do to be a successful business, it's a lot to it, And I'm still learning, and I'm glad that I have somebody experienced as you on my side. But for people that are trying to open a business, man, it's not just, let's go get this LLC, let's go do this, let's do that. There's there's structure that you have to put in place. You got to have the right people and that are working for you, that are wanting to buy into the system that you're putting in place. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, this is a big goal for us here this year is to, build a team that is ready to run that same mission as we are,
Yeah, vision. And I'm glad you brought that up, man, because I want to use this platform to announce something that's relatively important to me, and I think it's important to him as well. Today, on the recording of this podcast, we got the opportunity and the privilege to bring on what is to be the president of sales. Someone who saw our vision and saw what we wanted to create and saw the platform in which we're trying to build. And someone who's done some work for us, since we've decided to start this endeavor. But, being able to look at a guy dead in his face and see that he sees what we see and go, this is our guy. Like, this is the guy that's going to take us to the next level. And I want to give a huge shout out, on this air to, Mario Huerta, who's, going to be taking on a huge role in our business. And running the show, throughout the course of 2022. How important is that to you?
Very important, because like I said earlier, I want to be able to still give 100% to the company that I'm working for. And when and sometimes in real estate, and this is something that you guys would have to, accept is that there's really no days off, especially when you have such a deep backlog of buyers because a lot of homes are still under construction. Like I said, some of these homes take 5 months to build. And, sometimes you'll contract them from the beginning. There's times that, you'll contract them once the home is done or close to completion, and then it takes them about a month to close because you still got to do all the underwriting and all the other stuff with the loan process. But there's some times that you're going to have a very deep backlog where it's like every month you have closings. That's what I try to, and that's another thing that, especially if you guys are ever considering, I want to work for a builder as well. You got to be able to set yourself up for success. Don't have that up and down income that a lot of, real estate people have where, let's say, January they get this huge check, but then February, March, April, they don't see any money. You got to set yourself up to where every month you have something rolling in, and that's one thing that I am grateful with the company that I'm at is that at certain stage you can actually sell in other communities. A lot of people are comfortable. They're like, I've been sold out since Thanksgiving. I haven't had a single home in Wood Forest since Thanksgiving. But I'm like, where can I get the next sale? So I'm looking in the system like at all inventory and citywide. I'm sitting there because you got to wait for a certain stage in construction before it's released to you. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, oh, it's in Rosenberg? What's that, an hour and a half? Bet, let's go. I remember one time, even Connie, that's why I love Connie, man. She backs me up so much in everything that I do. I said, hey, man, I don't feel like doing this hour and a half drive by myself. You want to go with me? She's like, bet, let's go. She jumped in the truck with me, and we met a couple buyers in Rosenberg. And granted, I live in Montgomery, Texas. This is an hour and a half, just to go meet with somebody that doesn't, you don't even know if they're going to buy it. They just want to go see the house. Mm-hmm. So this is stuff that you have to realize that.
Well, let me ask you this because you brought it up, right? You've got this level of support from your wife. Did you have a direct conversation with her where you said, listen, babe, this is what I'm going to do and I need your help? Or did she kind of just fit in where she saw it needed to be?
Both. So, like, she understood. I was like, hey, this is going to take more time out of my day because I want to be able to be focused. And I want this thing to not take years. I want this to, it's going to take time, but I want it to be faster than what the norm is, Mm-hmm. So I told her, I was like, hey, right now the kids are real little. My twins are now 2 years old. So, yeah, granted, they see me and they're like, hi, daddy, whatever. And my boy's already in school. So I told her, I was like, right now I want to go hard, like hard, because I want to be at a situation where once they're a little older, let's say they get into sports or whatever activity they get into in school, I want to be able to be there for them. I don't want to be having to, balance everything. I want my stuff to be just smooth sailing. Mm-hmm. And it takes time, it's going to take discipline. It's going to take a lot of hustle. It's going to take a lot of, work. But I want to get there eventually, So, and I told her, I was like, right now that the kids are small, let me go head on,
And you had this conversation directly with her. And what did she say?
She agreed because the thing about the job that I was at before, I was already doing that. I would go in at like 8 in the morning and I wouldn't come home till like almost 10. So she was used to almost never seeing me. Mm-hmm. So I would literally go home to sleep and go to work the next day, And I only had 1 day off in that job versus here now I have 2 off days. So one of the days I'll try to, I'll tell her, hey, I'll watch the kids, you go do what you need to do. Mm-hmm. So she still gets her time,
So let's synopsis this. So you currently have a full-time, extremely demanding position in the real estate market, selling homes for one of the largest, if not the largest builder in the country.
Yeah.
And then you also have the business on the side where you're putting forth effort and you're still trying, to make things happen and we're getting work done. And then at the same time, you're also balancing a wife and 3 kids.
Yes.
3 kids.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot. It's a lot on your plate.
Yeah.
Is there a point in life where it feels like it's too much, where it feels like it's overwhelming?
When I was in my down, yes. But now that I've reached a certain level where I feel like I'm doing well in life, not so much. Because a lot of the problems do come back to finances. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that I am grateful with real estate is that you get some really good checks off of each home. So it gives me an opportunity to where I'm not stressing my mortgage.
If we had to average an amount, because people don't know, let's say I work for a new home construction. Again, I get it. Every builder's different. Every home is different. Some homes are 200, 100, 400, 700. But if I just had to look at the business entirely, what's the average commission on a home? New construction.
$7,000 to $8,000 a house.
Okay. And on average per month, how many homes would I sell?
If you're decent, you're hitting your goals, 2.
So I could make $7,000 a sale, could sell 2, which ultimately is roughly $15,000. But I have to be able to sign up for the caveat that I won't get paid for probably 5 months.
Correct.
So there's a lag of success before I see it happen, and you've got to be willing to endure that.
Yes.
And you did talk about how you endured the 3-month training period and the interim of trying to get the success. So you signed up consciously knowing, hey, it's going to take some time, but I understand the long-term goal.
And that's the thing about real estate. You got to think long-term. You can't think next month, unless you have like the quick closes, but it's very rare in the new builder situation because, like I said, a lot of these homes are under construction. So if you just got to be able to, get on, like that song says, ramen and OJ, you got to be able to do that until it gets good, and then you can get your filet mignon and all the other stuff,
Absolutely.
But you got to be able to discipline yourself.
Okay. So you're in the real estate game. You've got the business. Your family is obviously on board because you've basically had the meeting with them and said, this is what we're doing. This is what's happening. Are you in or are you out? And your wife says, hey, I'm in, right? So talk to me about how you manage those two lives. You manage the business life, you manage the personal life. Where do you put your priorities and how I'm going to move, how I'm going to operate, what takes precedence?
So now that Axel's a little older.
How old is older?
He's 5 now.
Okay.
So, of course, now he understands things a little bit better, So we've become an agreement where I told Connie, I said, hey, I want to take him to school every morning. And that's our, the quick little drive to school. It's very important to me.
And you told that to your wife. You said, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to take him to school every morning.
Yeah. So I wake up early in the morning, and that allows her to get ready. Because, Connie being a stay-at-home mom, she still gets ready as if she was going to work. Mm-hmm. Like, she's not walking around in pajamas and stuff like that, like most people think stay-at-home moms do. She gets up, she's doing her makeup, she's doing her hair during the time that I'm out taking Axel to school. So when I come back, because I don't go to work till 10, that's another great thing about working with a builder. You're not going in at 8 in the morning. You're going in at 10.
So what time do you take him to school?
7:20.
Okay, so you take him to school at 7:20. She's getting ready for the day. She's getting all situated. You come back, then what?
So then I get ready for work, and then I go to work, and then she's able to get the kids ready to breakfast. So during the time that they're in some space, she's doing breakfast for the kids. So by the time they wake up, breakfast is ready for them.
So she's cooking breakfast,
yeah.
Which is also very impactful because now your children get the opportunity to have a home-cooked and family-oriented breakfast.
Correct.
Which is very impactful to their upbringing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because now, man, you see it a lot too, man. Everything is just fast forward now, the way life has just been now, especially with COVID. Everything is just on the go, you know what I'm saying? It's very rare when families sit together, with their kids and see how things are. And now in the evening times when I get off of work, I'll go home and I'll tell Axel, hey, let's go get a book. And we'll read a book together every evening just because I want to make sure that he excels.
Green eggs and ham?
Yeah, that's one of them. That's actually one of his favorite ones too. But he's doing very well. And
so let me ask you this, right? And this is a question I've asked plenty of people, but I'm going to ask you. You've created a great life for yourself. We've talked about that. You've got a nice home. Your kids, now. Here's the reality. If you guys didn't know this, I'm going to tell you now. Children are able to retain memory at roughly around the age of 4. At the age of 4, they start to be able to understand and remember things. Right now, you cannot remember anything that happened to your life before the age of 4. If you can remember something, you're doggone lying. 4 is the age you have the ability to retain memory. Your son, Axel, is now over 4. So these memories are real. They're valid, and they're relevant to his upbringing.
Yes.
My question to you, you gained a level of grit and grind that came from your tough upbringing, and you talked about that earlier. How do you move in raising your children where you go, I'm not going to make you go through the hardship that I had to endure? Does it scare you that they're not going to have the grind you have? How do you move in that level?
So that's one thing that I'm learning because, with a lot of income, the first thing you want to do is spoil your kids. You want to buy them this, you want to buy them that. So that's one thing that me and Connie have been able to really get a grasp of, is not spoiling them. You know, still treating them as normal kids. You know, and that's one thing that, you know, I want to make sure that they understand that, you know, life can go up and it can go down at any moment. You know, one day you have everything, the next day you may lose everything. You know, so that's one thing that, I mean, I'm always going to show them what I went through so that they can learn from that.
So you're having, your intent is to have direct conversation to what it took for you to get here so that they can value where they're at.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So, but you believe you can instill that level of grit into them without having to put them through that hardship, as long as you articulate what it took for you to get there.
Correct.
Okay. You know, and I asked you that not to set you up, but because I've asked that question to many, many, many people. You know, for me, it wasn't an easy road to get here, similar to you. It wasn't an easy road. There's a lot, and it was tough. But I don't want to wish that on my children, and I think you're in a very similar mindset. I don't want my kids to have to go through what I went through. But at the same time, I think for people who created their level of success, they want their children to replicate their level of grind, their level of effort, their level of execution. You want your son not necessarily to take on the role you've taken on, but to at least apply that level of effort, right?
Absolutely.
So how can you guarantee that plays out?
Well, I feel like this isn't a thing that, you know, will one day be like, hey, my life sucked, it got better, you can do the same. It's going to be a process, you know. As the kid gets older, their mindset changes. They go through different things in school. You know, they learn different things. They are able to understand things a little bit better as they mature. So there's things that, I mean, when he's 6, I'm not going to be like, hey, by the way, I was homeless. He's going to be like, okay.
Yeah.
You know, this is more of like you got to understand. And each person, they know their kid. You know, they know what they listen to and what they don't. They just kind of like brush off things. You know, I'm still in an early stage because like I said, my twins are barely 2 years old. So I can literally tell them a whole story, and they're just gonna be like, "I want cocoa melon." You know, like, they don't care.
Yeah.
And the same thing with Axel. Like I could tell him a sob story, and he's just gonna be sitting there looking at me like, "Can I go play now?" You know.
But you know that clock is ticking, though,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
You know, one day they're going to start asking the real questions.
I'm easing it in, you know, and one thing that I started, because this is something my mom always did when we were kids. She would always pray over us in the morning before we went to school. And every morning when we go to school, and now he like you play a song, he'll know what it is because I play it every morning. It's a song called "The Blessing" by Elevation Worship, and it talks about how your generations, you know, just God watching over you, make sure that everything's good. So it's stuff like this that my mom did for me that I want to be able to replicate because it's stuff that stuck with me, you know. And I just feel like it just brings more peace of mind versus, you know, you're in the morning. A lot of parents could be like, hurry up, you know, you're late, you know, and then the kids going to school all like, dang, man, you know, I just got yelled at. My day's going to suck already. Yeah. But if you started it in a certain situation, this little stuff that I'm learning as a parent, you know, you're going to learn as you go. But it's just little stuff like that, you know, let their day start peacefully, you know. Even if it's simple prayer, if it's a song, if it's just a talk you want to have with them. Like, I'll ask, like, in the morning, I'll be like, hey, you ready for a good day? He'd be like, yeah. I'm like, you going to listen to the teacher? He'd be like, yeah. It's stuff that I'm repetitive with every day.
Positive affirmation.
Excellent. Yeah, that. And so, in times I'm like, man, I feel like I'm very, very repetitive all the time. I don't know if it's just going to eventually just kind of be like, you already said that yesterday, whatever.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's helping me as a parent because it starts my day off good too. You know, man, what day is not going to start well when you're, you know, listening in the car to some worship music or something? For sure. A lot of people that are listening, some of you guys might not be believers, but this is something that I believe in, and it helps me, you know, to start my day right. So by the time I'm at work, I'm awake, I'm ready. You know, I have my goal in place, and this is what I need to attain today. And that's another thing too is like people get stuck with the big picture that they forget the little steps. So that's one thing I like to do on a daily basis is before I even do anything at work, like I have my little sticky notes next to my desk, and I'll write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I learned this from Jeff Bezos. Basically, put 5 attainable goals
for the day.
For the day.
Okay.
And try to get all of them done. So I'll write 5 goals every day. What I need to do. This is what I need.
Give us an example of what those 5 goals could be.
So, for example, in the business model with Lennar, I would put on there, you need to follow up with 10 people Then I'll put another one. I'll be like, go take pictures of this. And then there'll be another one where I'll be like, I need to go talk to 10 real estate agents. Like, hey, you got buyers. Stuff like that, that can just go by.
Tangible things that could be done that day.
Correct. It's easy. It could be simple just like that. Like a lot of people probably thinking like, oh, he's putting his goal. It's like, I'm be like, oh my God. Like, no, it's just something that literally you can just pick up your phone and do,
To give a level of productivity.
Correct.
One of the things that I lived by, and I believe everyone should do this. Every day to me out of the days of the month, let's say hypothetically there's 30 days in this month, right? We're in February, there's 28 days. Every single day for me in my life, I chalk it up to either a W or an L. One of those two things happens. And I grade myself based on my productivity levels. If I believe I should have had this level of productivity, I should have made this level of things happen, when the day is done, I write on my calendar either a W or an L. I do that 100%. I promise you I do that. And when I look back at the end of the month, I go, how many W's did I have? How many days were productive? And if I go, hey, look, I had 21 out of 28 days productive, that was a good month. But if I look back and look, dude, I had 30 or I had, 20 or 15 L's out of 28. Man, that's a tough month, man. I didn't do a great job. But what you're talking about is expectations. You can't have a level of success or failure if you don't have a level of expectation. And you're basically writing out expectations for yourself, right?
Absolutely.
Great. So I want to end the podcast with a couple rapid fire questions. Some real direct rapid fire. You ready? Rapid fire number 1. You got Axel, who's now 4. Is that right? 5. And then you've got, your 2 twins. Which one of your kids do you believe is going to be the most successful, and why?
Well, it's kind of hard because there's such an age gap there that one is a little bit more developed than the other, so you don't really understand their mindset yet as far as like how they're thinking. I feel like Axel resembles me a lot, so if he has what I have in a way, then I feel like eventually he's going to be a leader for the other 2, because he loves to lead the other 2. Like I just see that in him. Like the little ones just follow him everywhere. He loves it. Like a lot of older, especially if there's a age gap where they're barely learning how to talk, so they don't really communicate with him much. But he's sitting there. He's very patient with them, and they like to follow him. He likes that they follow him. So I see that there's going to be leadership in him. And as far as the kids, man. Sophia, she's my little girl, so of course she's going to be the apple of my eye. And I'm probably going to favor her more as a father figure, because be more protective. I was like that with my sister. Like, I hated when boys talked to my sister. Even with my stepdad, I hated him for like the first 2 years. I was like, stop talking to my mom. Like, I was just that, protective person. So I was when I found out I was going to have a little girl, I was like, I already know how I'm going to get, And so that's something I have to work with, because I want to make sure that she doesn't feel like I'm just like all over her like that. Mm-hmm. And then my boy, Mateo, bro, he's just the sweetest boy, man. He's just loving. And like I said, it's just going to take some time to kind of see where they develop, because every kid is going to be different.
Because it's so early.
Correct.
Yeah, I got you. Okay, next question. If you had to survive the rest of your life off of one meal, what would it be?
One meal? Mm-hmm. Man, I love my steak.
Steak?
I got to have my steak.
You don't even know how to cook a steak.
I can buy one.
Okay. Steak is what you're picking?
I think I'd pick steak, man. I love steak.
Okay. If you could create if you could go back in time, right? Obviously, you're in the real estate game. You're doing relatively well. Let me rephrase that. You're doing extremely well. You're killing the game. You're setting records. If you could go back and have this level of success in any industry on the planet, right? Let's say skill, timeline, learning, they were not relevant. It was just like, this is the industry I'm in. What would it be?
Honestly, real estate, because it's very rewarding. Because it's not just, selling somebody, okay, here, boom. You actually going to be the reason now that they're going to create memories. It's just a rewarding business. Like, it's not just the transaction. It's the relationships you build, the networking behind it. And then I know it's going to open up doors for me as far as the general contracting goes, because people talk, like the experience is what they talk. I read this book called Raving Fans. It's like, it's all about referrals, and it just becomes a trickling effect. And that's what's made my job so easy to me. Like, I see these people busting butt, man. They're out there, doing all these things. And I'm like, at first I did that, and I continue to do it, but not at such a heart level because it's become easier for me because it's just word of mouth now.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like from what my knowledge is from now, from what I know from my past and now, I feel like real estate and anything that has to do with residential, anything that's general contracting as far as homes and stuff like that. Absolutely.
Because at the end of the day, the homes are going to be the number one valued asset in their life.
And that's another thing, too. You're not just selling something. You're selling them value because homes are going to build equity. So say you buy a home for $250,000. So, like, for example, 2 years ago, I was selling a certain floor plan for $300,000. That same floor plan now sells for $425,000
because of the market.
So the people that bought before the market are sitting on a gold mine right now.
100%.
And it's going to keep going.
100%.
Because of all these people that are moving from California, from other states.
I had a friend who moved into his house. I believe he was in Midlothian. He moved into his house in 2019. He bought his house for $600,000. He got an offer. It was about 2 months ago since I last spoke to him. He got an offer, which is now 2022, but at the time it was late 2021, which would have been 2 years. He bought his house and he got an offer for $825,000.
It's crazy.
That's ridiculous.
It's the market.
It's ridiculous.
And you see it more in the resale value versus the new builds because new builds we don't take bids. The price is the price.
The price is the price.
Correct.
Yeah, it's preset.
Yeah, but in resale, it's whatever the buyer wants and whatever the seller's willing to pay.
Okay. So
I'm sorry, whatever the seller wants and whatever the buyer is willing to pay.
Sell. Okay, so next question. Favorite candy?
I don't really eat candy, but I would say like a Hershey's bar or something.
Hershey's bar is your pick.
I'd say Hershey's bar.
Okay, favorite book?
I would say, I've been reading a couple. Actually, you know what one of my favorite books is? 13 Fatal Errors.
I know he was going to say
13 Fatal Errors. Because right now, that's one thing I love about Lennar is that there's actually still training. It's not just a 3-month program. We train on Tuesdays and on Fridays. So there's literally 2 days of the week that they dedicate to training you on Teams calls, Microsoft Teams, or what's that other, Zoom. Mm-hmm. And so Phil is still, training us every week how to get better. Like they even have us. See, this is a little different because this is live. You can't edit this, So what they have us do is they'll put like a certain subject, like, okay, how would you ask for a referral? And so they have you record yourself. But you could take like 10 takes until you actually like one, Mm-hmm. So like there's stuff like that the company does to, make us a little bit better.
Your favorite book, it's actually called 13 Fatal Errors Managers Make and How to Avoid Them. One of my favorite books, I believe I definitely have it on the shelf. Okay, I see you. Awesome book. Talks about some incredible lessons that you need to learn. So that's your favorite book, huh?
It's one of them.
Okay, sweet. Next question.
Actually, let me rephrase it. Let me go back because this is something that I started going back. Right now, I'm trying to keep it professional as far as like the business side, but I've started going back into reading my Bible. That's something that I stopped doing. So that's something that I started. I want to be able to read the entire Bible this year.
So favorite book is the Bible.
I want to say.
Awesome question. That weird enough. That's my next question. When we leave this earth, where do you think we go? Truthfully.
I want to say if I do everything right, I want to go be in heaven.
Okay. And you think heaven is depicted as what they've declared for us? Is this place in the clouds?
Not really.
What is your honest belief?
My honest belief is I don't base it off of religion or what people, I base it off of a relationship, how my relationship with God is. Because I know I'm not perfect, but I know that after this, there's an afterlife. There mm-hmm. has to be. This ain't it. Mm-hmm. Whether it's us going into a different energy or there might just be the clouds, I don't know. But I know that there's an afterlife after
there's something after this.
There's something after this. This can't be it. Because then why, and I don't want to get too much into this, but, you see kids that are, they'll pass away early at stages in life, or people that live really old, then why were the young ones put on this earth? You know what I'm saying? And there's nothing after that. Mm-hmm. So it's just stuff like that that I think about. So in my belief, I 100% believe that there's something after all this.
Which is just not 100% as to what it is. It's not correct. Depicted to be the place in the clouds where we take
angels
this
flying. Yeah. I don't believe in that. But it's more of there's an eternity after this.
I believe so too. I believe if you look at the statistics, and people ignore the statistics because they're scary. Earth is 2.6 billion years old, and human beings are roughly dated to about 30,000 years old, and our life expectancy in America is roughly about 82 years old, which means Earth is 2.6 billion years old, and I'm only on this ride for 82 years. This is not it.
Yeah.
This is not it. I was somewhere before, and I will be somewhere after. My consciousness may not survive that. My consciousness may reset when I leave this very fleshy vessel I've been placed into. But when I leave, I'm going somewhere. I can guarantee you that. And I don't know if I will be judged by the context of the conversations I had with you, but I know for a fact I will be judged by what I did with what I was given. I know that for a fact. I know we are all given innate, God-given abilities. I do things better than you do, and God gave me that. You do things better than I do, and God gave you that. There are people who can freaking jump 50 inches, bro. I can't do that, man. God gave Ja Morant that, bro. I would love that, okay? He was given that, and he's doing an exceptional job with it. There are things that I've been given that God gave me, and I will be judged on what I do with it. Ja Morant, you're doing a good job, bro. You're going to heaven. I'm just trying to make sure I get there too, okay? So I appreciate you announcing that. Final question. The last question of the night. You ready?
Let's go.
Last question of the night.
Yeah.
You've got business. You've got work. You've got a lot going on. You've got children. You've got 3 kids. You've got a wife who demands you. I've watched her get on the phone and cuss you out. I've watched it. I've seen it all happen. What's the most important thing in life to you right now? If you had to stand on a mountaintop and pick one thing, what is it? And secondly, what does every single person who wants to become successful need to know? That's my 2-part question. Go.
If there's something that I just shout and say that this is what
first part is, what's the most important thing on planet Earth to you? And it cannot be family. That's a whole, that's a tough question. What is it? The thing.
The thing is fulfilling my calling.
Elaborate. Don't leave us there, man. That's a teaser.
So, and to go back, I want success because eventually I want to be able to take on a ministry full time. That's my end goal but in order to be able to do that, you have to be able to, financially stable so you can still take care of your family, still pay your mortgage, still do stuff like that, That's my end goal. And that's what I feel like my calling is. And it's crazy because people may not believe in this, but I do. And I've surrounded myself with people that do. People speaking prophecy over you. Ever since I was a kid, people would always tell me this. And it was crazy because it's always people that I don't know, and they tell me the exact same thing. And that's why I'm grateful that you're putting me in a situation like this where I'm starting to get uncomfortable, because that's only going to allow me to grow, to do stuff like this. Because in order for me to be able to do that, I got to get comfortable with stuff like this. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And growing up, man, I was always scared to be a public speaker. That's just, man, I'll start sweating bullets. Like sometimes my mom, they'll put me, do the announcements.
You don't have to explain. We watched you sweat through my podcast.
So, yeah, you guys watched it firsthand. So, this is something new to me. Well, it's not new to me, but it's something that I've always been uncomfortable with, that I want to be able to control in a way, be able to get better at it, so that eventually when I'm in a position that, where I was called to be, mm-hmm. that is no longer an uncomfortable situation.
It's the norm.
Correct. So, that's it's to fulfill my calling.
So time out. Because these questions are going to come up, right? Now, I've been asked this question. I want to give a huge shout out. I talked about Santiago earlier. Santiago is such an amazing person in my life, and he gave me the opportunity to meet Michael Jr. If you don't know who Michael Jr. is, he's a famous comedian, a Christian comedian. He was in a movie. His freaking story is incredible, and I can't wait for him to be on. He's going to be on as well. But he was in a movie on Amazon Prime where he adopted a girl in the movie, and then he ended up adopting her in real life because she didn't have parents. And it was freaking heartwarming, man. It was one of the It was one of the most godly, incredible moments I've ever firsthand witnessed. But I got the opportunity to talk to him, and he looked me dead in my eyes as close as I am to you, and said, "What is your life's purpose? What did God put you on this earth for?" And I know the gifts God gave me, and I know the desires God gave me, but I can't confidently, 100%, undoubtedly say God put me on this earth for this reason. I don't know if I've discovered that yet. I know the desires He gave me. I know the gifts He gave me. I don't know if He's shown me yet that this is why you walk this planet. I don't know that yet. So I looked at him and I said, I don't know, Michael. And he said, well, when you figure that out, you tell me. And I wasn't there yet. So it's great that you brought that up, because I believe when you figure that out, and I've yet to come there. I think I know a lot of what God wants me to do. I know His mission for me, but I don't think I've unlocked that thing yet. But I know for a fact I am so doggone motivated to do what He's asked me to do that when He finally unlocks my full potential of purpose, dude, I will jump out the window off the 30th floor if He asks me to. Because listen, man, this is a short ride. This is a short ride, man. We're on this planet for 80 years on average. Listen, I can tell you now, as complex as our brain and our consciousness is, it isn't built for 80 years. Listen to me. I could cut your head open right now and pull out your brain. That's not built for 80 years. That's built for so much more than 80 years. We are so doggone complex. It's bigger than this earth. And when I figure out what He wants of me, man, I'm going to give it to Him. I'm going to give Him everything I got. I'm going to give Him everything I got, because wherever we're going after this is that's more important than this 80 years. So the second question, go.
Well, can you repeat it again?
Come on, man. You've been on the show. First question is the most important thing on this planet to you, and you stated was fulfilling your calling, right? And the second question that I have for you, and the thing that I think we need to know is, I don't know what it is.
Oh, it's you said if somebody wants to become successful.
What do they need to know?
What do they need to know?
What is the nugget that they need? If you could give everyone watching, hey, listen, I want to make some money. I want to level up. I want to do well. I want to climb the ladder. What do I need to know? What separates good and great? What separates winners and losers? And don't give us time out, because this is what the show is about. Don't give us the easy stuff that I could read on Instagram, right? Yeah. Tell me the real and raw. Tell me from someone who's had success, who's know what it's like. Hey, I don't know if I can pay my rent. I don't know if I can pay my car note, and now I'm doing it well. What is the real thing?
Trust that everything is going to pan out the way it's supposed to, and trust in yourself that you're able to do that. Because that's one thing that I never lost focus was I can do it, and I know that this isn't it. Because the lows, that's not it. It only goes up from there. And you have to be able to appreciate the lows as much as you appreciate the highs, because the highs won't feel as good without the lows. They come hand in hand. So if you feel that there's a stage in your life where you're like, man, this sucks, or why me, or stop being the victim to your situation and figure out how you can get out of that situation. And that's the way I feel that you can progress in life,
What if I don't see that big picture? What if it's not that clear to me? What if I'm in a tough spot and I'm living life and I'm trying to make ends meet, but it's just not happening, and I've lost confidence in myself? How do I get over that?
A lot of alone time. You got to find yourself. You got to stop listening to what's outside of you and start listening what's inside of you, because you got to go back to what you want, what it is that you desire in this life. Because like you said, everybody's maybe not everybody gets to the stage where you were, where you're like, hey, this is it. I'm done. I want to end my life. But there's some people that are like, dude, and that's why you see a lot of homeless people in this world, because they lose hope, not in those people around them. They lose hope in themselves. They lose that trust that they had in themselves, that, hey, you know what? I can do what those people are doing, mm-hmm. that are successful, that are doing well in life. Those people that are, they're stable in life. That's what happens. People just lose faith in themselves, and they lose that focus and that vision of where I can be if I can believe in myself once again.
Can anyone do it, or do you have to be born with something?
You can do it if you were meant to do it. That's what I believe in. Because, I can train all day, every day, go lift weights, do regimen, follow the diets, but man, I go try for an NFL team. I don't think I'm gonna make an NFL team. I'll probably be really good at football, but I'm not. So this is what I mean. Like if like how you said earlier, it was written in your book before you even put in this earth. It's like what God said is, I had a plan for you way before you were in the womb of your mom. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there's a plan in place, and everybody and we deviate. Like, man, when I started touching money, man, I lost focus on what I wanted in life. You know, I started doing dumb stuff, making stupid decisions that eventually cost me a lot of things, but I was able to circle back around, hit that rock bottom, and say, hey, you know what? Let me just find myself again, find my calling, find what it is that I want in this life. And once you do that, then you can start working towards that vision.
So the reality is everyone on this earth, and this is also my belief, I'm glad you said this, and this is an awesome ending to our show. I believe this as well. Everyone on this earth, every single person, you were put on this earth for a reason. You have
Absolutely.
a gift, and you have a calling, and you have an avenue to the top of that field. Every single person has a God-given gift. If you didn't know it, I follow what Steve Harvey brought into this earth, and he says it best. I've never seen anyone say it better than anyone else. Your God-given gift is what you do the easiest with the least amount of effort. That is your God-given talent. God put you on this earth. He gave you a gift, and he sent you into the world to share your gift with other people. If you do that at the highest level, you know, I'll end it with this. I'm in a group called Biz Owners Ed. I love these guys to death. It's an incredible group. There was 12 of us who were selected for a class, and we've talked about it. 12 of us were selected for this class. Hundreds of people applied, and I don't know how the heck I got in, but it's a humbling experience. And there's about 9 billionaires who teach us the in and outs of running a business. And Jeff York, who's an awesome person for me, is one of the most incredible people I've ever met in my life, who's a multi-billionaire. His company is on the New York stock market for $64 billion. Looked me dead in my eyes as close as we are, and he said, everyone is placed here. I think God put us on here for relationships. We're all built on relationships, and I think he values that more than anything on earth. And he said, you have to maximize while you're here. Whatever you're here for, if you on earth, whoever you are, if anyone on earth, if you can help as many people as you can get what they want, as many people, that's the key word, help as many people as you can get what they want, you will get what you want. And there was a thing that, you know, he said, and it hit me so freaking hard. He said, you need to create a culture that can honestly state, if you can get here, I can get you there. I don't know where your there is. You've got to tell me what your goals are. But if you can get here, I promise you and I vow to you, as my time on this earth, I will get you there. Wherever there is, I will get you there. Just get here. Get to me, and I swear to you, I will give every fiber in my bone to get you wherever you're trying to go. That rocked my life. That changed my entire life. I heard that, man, it changed my life. And that is my commitment to people who come across me. I've had the privilege to bring on some new people to design roofing. For those of you guys who are watching, Jesus, you're a freaking rock star. Giovanni, you're next level. You guys, you managed to get here, and I promise you, with every fiber in my bone, I will get you there. So I appreciate, you know, Jeff. I appreciate Marco. I appreciate a lot of the conversations we've had the privilege to talk about. He said it to you guys. The one thing that's going to separate you is your commitment to yourself. Believe in yourself that you can make it happen. Believe in yourself that I'm going to get this done. But more importantly, don't be naive. If you can sign up on the piece of paper that I'm going to make it happen, be willing to put in the effort. Be willing to put in the work. Don't blame anyone but yourself, because you're relying on yourself to be successful. I love the fact that we ended on the show. Marco, it's been a privilege having you on. For those of you guys who are looking to buy new homes, Lennar is selling new homes. He talked about it earlier. They have zero inventory, so don't ask him. They don't have anything. For those of you guys looking to do stuff that builders don't do, Royal Renovations is here. Thank you so much for watching our episode of A Student of the Game podcast. I'm Kevin. This is our teacher, Marco Manrique. End us out with the most important attribute in life. What is it?
Most important attribute in life, just like I said, trust in yourself.
Trust. Faith in yourself. I'm going to use that. I'm going to reiterate that word, faith. Have faith. Have faith. I believe this wholeheartedly. Have faith that your story was written before you. Have faith that you weren't put on this earth random. Listen, I've got a great deal of respect for every religion. Every religion. If you pray to God, if you pray to Buddha, if you pray to Allah, I have respect for it. What I don't have respect for, and I'll just say it, if I lose followers, it's okay. All of you guys who think this shit is random, like the big boom just randomized us, man, I don't fuck with you, man. I don't. Listen, we were placed on this earth by someone. We're too complex for it to be random. We're too complex. Every single person has a different personality. I'm good at things you're not good at. You're good at things I'm not good at. I have a different personality than you. It's not random. We were placed here. Have faith that you can make it happen. But most importantly, be willing to do it. Be willing to put in those efforts, to have those internal contracts, to have those conversations with your wife, with your kids. Be willing to go, I'm going to make this happen because my children deserve it. Thanks so much for watching this episode of the Student of the Game podcast with Marco Manrique, our teacher in the real estate game of Lennar. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, leave it in the comments. Be sure to subscribe, follow, and be ready for the next episode. Thanks so much. Bye.